On the Movie Marathoners podcast, we took some time to digest The Last Jedi, and now we're ready to pull up the therapist couch and talk about our feelings. Crazy Luke, Leia Poppins, and green milk. All that and more right now on the Movie Marathoners podcast. Episode 12 of the Movie Marathoners podcast. This is part one of our The Last Jedi analysis, deep digested analysis. We saw it about a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago it was, and we had talked about it before and after, so catch up with episode 11 on some of that pre-show, post-show commentary. That was all on scene at the theater and at the restaurant beforehand. But now we're back in the studio today and excited to be back. It's been about over a week since we've recorded. We skipped last week for Christmas and everything, but we are back. So for this episode, let's meet our panel of green milk drinkers. I'm Josh.
Jameyson.
And Zach.
Oh, did you forget who you were? Zach's got his hood up, so he looks similar to Palpatine, and I think he might have forgot what his name was.
Well, I've just been gone for a couple. I was trying to think of something cool I could give a nice shout out to the fans saying I was back, but
it's too late for cool stuff. The fans have really been asking about you.
Yeah.
Where's Zach? And unfortunately, he's
been
back.
Trending on Twitter.
Yeah. Hashtag Where's Zach? Let's get that going. So let's jump into our beer of the week. And tonight it is from 12 Gates Brewing. Zach, you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, so I picked this one out. This is a 12 Gates West Coast IPA. It's very good. 12 Gates, local brewery. So we always like to support those guys.
Mm-hmm.
The West Coast, I'm a big IPA fan. But the West Coast IPAs, I feel like you get the flavor of the hops, but it's a lot more mellow. It's not like the bitterness of...
stuff is super hoppy. It's
Nerds.
Citra hops. That's what they got.
Don't compare it
Reading the can there. Reading the can. It says Citra hops on the can. 6.7 ABV. So that would not fall into our typical approachable range, which is, 5.5 and below. But 6.7, that'll do the trick for sure. And unfiltered too, which is interesting.
Key.
Yeah.
It's key.
Yeah. Not super into the IPAs, but I do like this. It also has grapefruit peel in it, which you can definitely taste that.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to give a general apology note to everyone listening. Josh is going to get phlegmy.
Oh, yeah, the IPAs phlegm me right up, and you might have noticed in some of the other podcasts, if you can't listen, you have to stop listening. It's usually because of my phlegm.
Still working on a filter for that one.
We need a phlegm filter on the mic. I'm going to be super conscious of that now through the entire episode. I'm not going to be able to breathe. I'm going to just be breathing out of my nose so I don't get phlegmed up.
Well, you should always breathe out of your nose.
Can't do it, man.
How long have you been breathing out of your mouth for?
Dude, it's December. I don't breathe out of my nose until May.
Okay. I thought you were going to say, years.
So that's our beer of the week. It's 12 Gates West Coast style IPA. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know nothing about beer, but it is pretty good.
Well, that's all you need to know about beer.
Well done, 12 Gates.
Speaking of pretty good, let's talk about The Last Jedi.
Ugh.
Real quick, round table, love it or hate it?
Love it.
Meh.
I'm on the kind of bandwagon there.
Plus side of meh?
The plus side of meh. I think it was visually stunning.
Yeah.
Loved all the cool special effects, the scenery, all that. It was akin to Rogue One as far as cinematography. I thought that was huge. Storyline, meh.
Planet Portrayal was great.
Disagree.
Yes.
Did we throw a spoiler out there?
Yeah, spoilers.
Obviously.
Okay.
Coming.
I mean, why would you watch podcasts and...
Yeah, if you haven't seen this
after?
movie, why are you listening?
Come on, guys.
Get out of here.
Yeah, we're probably going to market it as, The Last Jedi analysis and, post-show stuff. So
And it's been 2 weeks. What are you doing?
yeah, it's 2 weeks. Go see it, man. Go see it. We went to the midnight premiere. You should too. But don't go to the same one because we don't want it to sell out because we want to just be the only ones there.
But as soon as you finish the movie, come back, listen to this, and go see it again.
So here's a good point to kind of break that. And spoilers from this point on. So let's talk about what I think is probably the most ridiculous part of the movie is the chase scene. But first, I want to talk about that tracking through hyperspace. When they jump into hyperspace, and then the Rebel Alliance, they think they're clear, and then First Order comes popping out, and they realize that they track them through hyperspace. What a revelation there.
You said you just rewatched Rogue One. Do you remember the Easter egg?
Yeah, I was hoping you brought that up. Yeah,
that they were working on.
Where Jin's they're going through hyperspace, and she talks about that.
Yeah,
talks about tracking.
Yeah,
and how they're developing the ability to do that. Which that's really cool.
Yeah, when they're looking for the Death Star plans in that big vault on what's the Scarif, yeah. She's going through all those files. She also pulls up one Black Saber, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see if that comes, because she only says like maybe 3 or 4 names of things before she ends on.
And it was
Stardust,
super intentional too. Like you say how she's saying the names like real slow and deliberate, so you know that stuff's going to come up again.
Or Black Saber. I think Black Saber is actually a reference to. I mean, I don't really watch Rebels, but there's a black. I think it's just called a Dark Saber in the show, and it's like this black sword lightsaber thing. I think it's just like a nod to that.
It looks like a katana.
Yeah,
like Darth Maul has it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's what he kills Obi-Wan's lover with, right?
Yeah. Who
That's
is
cool
not Rey's mom or grandmother, but spoiler.
Still canon.
All spoilers.
Better not be.
Enough.
Better not be.
It's all canon, baby.
It's all canon.
So after they get through the whole, they realize they can track them through hyperspace. All of a sudden, they're running out of gas. So since when are these things dependent on gas?
Yeah, terrible plot point.
Since the story dictates it.
Yeah, that's never actually happened.
Get that on the mic.
Hot mic, 12 Gates can.
Yeah, I would have to say that is probably. I mean, it's not really a big deal to me because it's just a story. It's just a small story point. But if you're gonna like.
That wasn't a small story point. That was the whole story.
No, it is.
That was the only reason. That was the only reason why they stayed in that spot is because of that.
That's it. That's a good point.
Yeah.
But that is probably my the only thing, my biggest problem with the movie. Sure, but it's really not a big deal to me.
Yeah, I think it's weird because it's like, okay, so they're running out of gas. Who else is running out of gas? I mean, you look at some of these ships are just going. Where are they refueling? Now all of a sudden we have to be concerned about refueling stations.
Well, I could say for a point that it makes sense because they had to leave Dakar in urgency. They had to get out of it. They didn't have time to if they had time to fuel, maybe they fueled partially. And if they would have fueled fully, they could have lasted however long. But they had to get out of there. I mean, they blew up their entire base right when the First Order showed up. So I'm sure they just had to leave. So I could see that.
Do you think the First Order somehow harnessed the power of kyber crystal to
fuel
theirs?
We talked about that in many episodes ago. Do you remember that? Using those kyber foxes, wherever they ended up with Voltec or whatever. If they were made out of kyber crystals, just throwing them in the hopper to fuel ships, to fuel the Death Star. It was. That's what we talked about. So, yeah, totally possible. I mean, apparently we see Crate, which it appears is kyber crystal harvesting town there, so they could very easily be doing that. But I mean, I would love to know what is the fuel that powers these things.
Yeah,
because it's not oil.
Well, if you do see, I don't know. I actually can't remember in the originals if they showed this, but I've seen it twice. So the second time I watched it, I seen obviously little details. But when Kylo Ren's attacking the Raddus and the Resistance is trying to get out of the docking bay. When the ships fire up, there's flames. Mm-hmm. So that's the first time.
I think it's burn off.
Yeah, you've kind of seen that, and and it's not like some kind of blue pulse or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like an actual flame. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe
something.
maybe it's new.
I don't know.
You know what I say to that point, and I go back and forth with this a lot in Star Wars, but what I say to that point in particular is it's a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
But it's not a movie. It's Star Wars, and things in Star Wars are canon. I mean, you're not just talking about
dude,
some corny sci-fi B movie. This is stuff that like it's written in stone. So now ships run on fuel is written in stone.
See,
So from here on out, that's going to be a problem.
yeah.
okay.
So are we going to see more ships running out of gas?
All right,
like mid hyper jump.
Something I will actually disagree with that is not disagree, but like make a point on that is this is the first movie to actually make a plot point about that. That could have been a huge point. I mean, even in the originals, when Obi-Wan points out the Death Star being, I mean, we're spending a lot of time on this, but when Obi-Wan points out that that's a space station because the TIE fighter that passes them, and they're like, oh, it can't be too far away from something because this is too far out. So why is it too far out? It's going to be running out of something.
Too far, yeah.
It's never been really a point that they brought up, but they have made little hints here and there that certain things can't be too far. I mean, even in that movie, when the Resistance get away, Hux calls back Kylo and says, "We can't help you from this distance. Get back." So if they go further out, will they be able to make it back? Or are those ships only able to?
No, I think Hux was trying to stay a certain distance behind them for some weird reason. That was another whole weird thing about the chase scene.
Well,
why not just pull up on them?
Well, I seen the second time, and they were they made a point that the Resistance ships were lighter and they were faster, and the First Order can't keep up with them.
So the First Order, in order to keep up, would have burned more fuel, and then they would have been out of fuel, and then you just have two dead in the spaceships,
and they bring out the oars on the sides,
and that's when I would have gone home.
Yeah. I was right after that part. I was like, are you kidding me? We're going to watch a 40-minute chase scene, in air quotes, chase scene, just waiting for them to run out of gas.
Star Wars
and then what are they going to do? Then you're going to kill them? Like, what's the goal here? That's why Hux is a horrible commander. We just can't trust him to do that kind of stuff. If Vader was there, he definitely would have force choked him and taken control of that ship.
I mean, this will get into the bigger points for the theme.
Okay, sorry.
My bad.
Zach always wants us to stop talking when we crack a beer. Don't do that. We don't need sound bites. We need conversation.
This is going to be like a bigger point if we get in a theme, but I loved Hux because exactly what you're saying. He's terrible. He's horrible. He sucks at his job. But it makes sense because clearly he's in that position because his father was in a position that got him in there. And even in the beginning, what was his name? Captain Kennedy in the Dreadnought, which I loved.
Yes.
He was awesome.
That was sick.
And like he points out how we should have dispatched the TIE fighters 5 minutes ago. And obviously everybody's like, Hux, you're terrible.
Yeah.
And it goes to the point that it's like, I mean, we'll get to it, but it goes to the larger theme of like, these people are here because family, because
it's like privilege almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And they're like third generation into this fight now at this point. So it's like a military family almost, where these guys are just getting in because they got that, Hux. Like either his dad or his grandpa or whatever was somebody big. But also it seems like he's kept around just because he is inept and weak and they can control him. Kylo and
Snoke
Snoke,
for sure.
Snoke, oh yeah, he controls everybody. But I think that maybe that's another reason why he's in that position too. Because he's kind of a yes man. But then he also sort of talks back every now and then.
Yeah. Well, it's
smacked around.
It's a play for Snoke to play them against each other to further what he wants.
Yeah.
It's
I
great.
agree with that. Now, probably the coolest part about that chase, since it was super boring, was when there was the mutiny on board by Poe, which I don't think was totally necessary.
Not at all.
I don't think it was necessary to show that.
I think it was.
Yeah, I
mean,
figured.
Seeing it a second time and just breaking down, because I mean, I didn't see it the second time till like a week later, and then so I had a week to like break down what I felt about it. Because when I first seen it, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know. And then when I seen it the second time and breaking everything down more and more,
I loved your commentary after we left the theater, and you and I were talking on the portable mic on the way out to the car, and I love your commentary there too, because it was a lot of, I need to think about this. I don't know what that was. I need to think about this. So right now is when you had time to think about it. So throw it out there.
With Poe, it perfectly fit his character and his story arc. That's exactly what they were getting across.
He's a true rebel.
But why couldn't she have just said, hey, we're going to go to Crate. It's this old abandoned rebel base.
That's the thing.
Because he didn't deserve it. He killed.
Really?
He got
that is
so many.
trash.
No, it's not. He got half of their or how many of their fleet killed. Because he's a flyboy. Because
he killed off all their bombers. They had one bomber left.
I mean, they played it perfectly in the one part when Finn and Rose figure out that they're tracking them, come up with a plan. And Finn's first thing is, oh, it's on a ship. Do you want to blow it up?
Yeah.
That's his first thought is, let's go attack. Not actually, and that's what what's her name? What's the purple-haired woman? Holdo. She doesn't have to tell him because he doesn't deserve it, and he should be locked up. I mean, he got half that he disobeyed Leia. She slapped him. That's all he got, and he doesn't.
She shot him, stun style.
Yeah.
So he kind of had that one coming too.
But he didn't deserve it. He and she even told it when he. I mean, he was waiting to get promoted when they brought Holdo in and said she's now the leader. He was hoping that he would get promoted. And when he didn't, he obviously let down. And then when he went up to her and explained the situation that's going on, she goes, thanks for explaining that to me. Now listen to me and whatever.
Get out.
And I completely agree with that. I thought it was great. It completely held together what the story was. And
the only way that I could see that necessary was one, to establish him as that true rebel that he's always been.
Yeah.
And two, to give himself a chance to redeem himself, which at the end of the movie he did, and he won Leia's trust.
Yeah.
And it was good in his story arc, but I feel like we already knew he was a crazy rebel, and then the first few scenes in the movie established that even more, that he's willing to just go gung-ho into it and just be crazy. But I guess it did kind of show that he was willing to stand up even within his own organization. Yeah. So he's like a rebel within the rebels.
Well, it's he thinks he's right, and that's what every character in this. That's the whole point of this movie is flaws. Everybody's got flaws, and you have to make choices. The whole point of Star Wars is it shows how human everybody is. In The Force Awakens, he's just a fighter pilot, and he's the best one. And in this movie, he knows he's the best one, and he's got an ego, and he thinks he can do what he wants, and then he gets slapped in the face because he lost all those people. And why should he get told what the mission is? Listen, you already you got demoted because you screwed up. Listen and just follow orders. You don't need to know. I'm telling you what you need to know. I mean, he even says it when Finn and Rose figure everything out and they tell him. He says, this is need to know, Holdo doesn't need to know. And that's exactly what she's doing.
And that's what she's, that's a good point. It is sort of that military confidentiality kind of thing, where he really is just a fighter pilot. He's nothing more than that. He just thinks he's more than that.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. So let's get to Holdo while we're there, the Vice Admiral, who goes ahead and takes over for Leia when Leia commands the ships over to Crate, and she stays back behind with the ship, with the flagship of the fleet. And her character she seems weak, but is obviously not. She's obviously a very strong character, and the actress that plays her, I forget who she is, but she...
Lena...
No, Stern.
I don't know, whatever it is. We'll throw that
Jurassic Park.
We'll fix it in post. Yeah, the mom from Jurassic Park.
Lena Dern.
There you go. That's probably it.
No.
So she plays the character so well. Like, I feel like the character wasn't even written as well as she plays it. I love her acting in that role because it sounds like she's very, like, she doesn't care about anybody's feelings. She's just on this mission. She was given the power from the general, so she's gonna do her duty no matter who stands in her way, even if it's this elite fighter pilot who's kind of a standout rebel. She's still gonna do what she has to do, and she's willing to go down with the ship.
Yeah,
and that makes a good captain. So, but I didn't particularly care for the scene between her and Leia when Leia was about to say, "May the Force be with you," and then they both said it, and Leia was like, "I've said it enough. You say it now." I was like, but why?
Carrie Fisher added that.
Really?
That was one of her alterations to the script.
Which, good on her. You know what? She's gone.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Let her have it.
What is it? Captain now? Captain Holdo? Well, it doesn't matter anymore.
Doesn't matter. She did.
But, yeah, so they talk about her in the Leia comics. Her purple hair, they say that she had that, like, as a visual reminder of her rebellious nature against everything from her parents to the Empire.
So she's just emo?
Yeah, basically.
She's like Kylo. She's just emo.
She's an interesting character. Like I said, they talk about her.
I really wish we would have been able to see more. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, extended universe and extra stuff. You see more of her, but I wish we would have been able to see more of that actress playing her, because the character is so rich and really cool. Great. And she did such a great job playing it, and she's only got like maybe 20 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
which kind of sucks.
I mean, she was such a powerful character in her actions and clearly what she does towards the end of the film.
Oh, Laura Dern.
Laura Dern.
Yeah.
I was thinking Rose.
See, I was going to fix it in post. Now I don't have to.
Oh, I was thinking
because
Rose.
I wasn't actually going to fix it.
Whatever it was. But, yeah, she... I do wish we would have seen her, but then you take away the scene that she makes one of the best scenes in all of Star Wars.
That's it right there. Is Star Wars is all about what are you willing to sacrifice and who are you willing to sacrifice it for? Exactly, and pretty much all the time it's your life, but who are you willing to sacrifice it for? And she's willing to sacrifice that for the rebellion, and that's what makes the rebellion so much better than that Empire First Order, whatever you want to call it, that group, because they're fighting for something, whereas First Order's fighting just for power. Yeah, but they're fighting for their people, and they're fighting for everyone that died, and they're fighting for the people that they know, and Holdo was no exception to that when she took the helm. And probably one of the coolest new things outside of being able to run out of gas was being able to hyperspace ram somebody. So sick. That
visual, good on you, Rian Johnson. That was probably the coolest scene.
Dead silence.
Cutting the audio out, just
pure white and black,
just gone, and then cut back into just a big. Oh, so good.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
so good. And just it's perfect because it allows you to exist in that moment because the sound is taken out.
You're really focused.
So there's nothing else.
That's an old directing trick.
Yeah.
Directors have been doing that since,
nothing in Star Wars.
Sound has been in movies.
Sensory deprivation.
They just pop you out so you're really focused on that one moment, and you're focused on visually what's going on there. You're not listening to the really cool explosion echoing through the speakers.
Which is actually foreshadowed earlier in the movie. We'll get to that though.
With Leia.
Yeah.
Speaking of space and explosions, get it right, Star Wars. Is space a vacuum or is it not? Do you hear explosions?
For 2 weeks for Zach to bring that up. Because he brought it up in the post show and we didn't record it, I don't think.
First of all, Star Wars is not sci-fi, it's fantasy.
Okay, so why are we running out of gas?
Yeah, Star Wars is sci-fi.
Star Wars.
My point.
It's gotta be. I think the originals were definitely fantasy, but I think that they've crossed the line into sci-fi for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other podcast that we could definitely debate that. Definitely debate that. That's fine by me. But yeah, the whole thing where is space a vacuum?
You can hear explosions. You've always been able to hear explosions in Star Wars ever since the very first, the original New Hope.
Well,
I'm cool with that. Fine.
Shooting and everything you can hear.
Yeah,
too. You can hear everything.
That's cool. It's a movie, right? I said that before. It's a movie. But then you have this explosion on the command deck, and Leia gets sucked out. Everybody gets sucked out, and she's immediately frozen. So it's like, well, is it real life space or is it not?
This was the thing, though. She if it was a vacuum, then what happened would have happened. She got sucked out.
Right.
If it was not, the explosion was behind her. She would have got thrust forward.
Right.
So maybe it is fantasy. Maybe it's not sci-fi.
It's a storytelling tech. I mean, to add explosion, that's just what Star Wars has always done.
When it benefits you.
Yeah.
Just when it benefits the visual storytelling. I mean, that's what Star Wars has always done. I mean, George Lucas didn't sit there and think so much into, like, we got to make... I mean, his point was make it different than Star Trek.
Yeah.
And it's just an added thing. Obviously, you're not going to hear it, but for added interest, whatever.
I just feel for Jake right now. His head is probably just exploding.
Yeah.
Jake's not a science guy.
Jake, if you're listening, good luck. So, you got into Leia getting sucked off the... Nope. Cut. So you got into Leia getting sucked out of the ship after the explosion.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back one little short scene before that because Jamie perfectly predicted that in our pre-show. It was episode 11.
Yeah.
We had the pre-show from the restaurant before the movie, and I had asked the question, we've seen in the trailer Leia and Kylo kind of lock, I don't know if they're locking minds or eyes or what, but we've seen them kind of locked together. What do you think is going to happen there? And you see Kylo with his finger on the trigger and everything, and Jamie actually said, I don't think he's going to do it. I think somebody's going to come up from behind him and do it. And when that happened in the theater, I looked over at Jamie, and he's just like, yeah.
Dude, it was so weird. I'm like, is this really happening?
That was incredible.
I don't like this.
So yeah, Kylo couldn't do it.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it. He couldn't kill both his parents.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, just killing one of them is kind of douchey in the first place, but he couldn't do it twice. I always think, he's a mama's boy. He's kind of whiny and emo, so he's got to be a mama's boy. He's got a soft spot for mom.
Mm-hmm.
Can't pull the trigger, but the orders were there, so somebody did.
Mm-hmm.
So we lose all of the commanding officers in one shot.
Well, what's amazing about that scene is right before that happens, he tells everybody, follow me, follow my lead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of him that it actually happens either way.
Yeah, right,
So
because those guys were coming up with him anyways.
Akbar was on the bridge.
Yeah,
he's
too.
got
Yep.
it. Yeah. When Holdo gets promoted, they bring that up. She brings that up, I think.
Yeah, that he's out there, and yeah, he's gone. He was probably the highest ranking below Leia that was on that ship. I think he was the only admiral that was on the deck at the time.
Well, Leia was definitely grooming Poe to be her successor. I mean, that was the whole thing about his story.
After Holdo gave up. Yeah, because I definitely think Holdo was her successor for sure, but then she had to do some quick thinking there.
Well, especially when he screwed up. Mm-hmm. He showed that he can't lead anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that great line of dead heroes but no leaders.
Yeah.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Akbar. It's great.
Yeah, that's too bad. I mean, he had to go, obviously. We're killing everybody off.
I was just like...
In the next movie, everyone needs to die.
So I've heard that they didn't show him because the guy who voiced him in the originals had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they didn't have him, like, with any speaking roles, but... I don't know. Like, you're telling me you can't have another voice actor come in.
He's such a popular character, too, that you can't... Just a pop culture kind of character. Yeah. And so you can't have... You got to show him at some point. And I wonder if in the next movie they'll show a flashback to that scene and show him... Because you don't even see him die. You just see everybody kind of walking behind Leia, sort of blurred out.
In the background.
And then kablamo.
Is he in the background?
You might have seen a shape. You see a shape of him, but you don't see... Like, I want to see it hit. I want to see it all in slow-mo. I want to see everybody's reactions to it. And then I want to see Leia, like, flying past everyone. like she's witch on a broom kind of thing, Leia Poppins.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see that too.
Which, are we getting to that?
Oh, we're getting to it.
Go ahead.
We're gonna have to pause a lot because I'm probably gonna knock the mic over. Disgust.
Leia Poppins. All right, so Leia gets blasted out, or it depends on how you look at it. Space is a vacuum or not. In this scene, it is a vacuum, in fact, and it sucks her out of the ship. And then she's floating there in space, and you think, oh, Carrie Fisher died already, so this is, I thought, when I saw that, I thought, oh, perfect. This is perfect. She goes down in a blaze of glory, doing her thing. She gave her final commands to everybody. She's got her successor there. We just saw this amazing scene, and then she's gone, and I was totally cool with that.
I actually was too.
Really reminiscent of her on Hoth too, like when they're trying to evacuate everybody. She's staying put. She's making sure everything's strong. She's like one of 5 or 6 people. Yeah, she's ready to go down for the cause. And I thought the same thing when that blew up. I was a little shocked, and then they showed her like floating there, and I thought, wow, that's like a little, hey, rest in peace, Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
Here's your final scene. They
So
was a
happy
very
with it.
peaceful shot. I thought, wow, this is great. Then they showed her hand icing over, and I thought, it's kind of creepy.
I know.
And then they showed her face, and like her eyes are doing a little weird thing. And I thought, okay, this is like way over the line here. They got to cut this off. And then she just comes back to life, just pulling herself back, and I almost puked in my mouth.
I have a whole other theory on what you just said, but keep going.
Please. So I understand Leia obviously has Force abilities. She's Darth Vader's daughter. There was things about how Yoda didn't even want to train Luke. They talk about that in was it Revenge of the Sith? When they say, okay, there's twins, Obi-Wan says about Luke possibly like when he comes of age, and Yoda said he doesn't want to train him. They train Leia, but you don't see Leia's Force abilities at all,
Ever.
whatsoever.
Ever.
She in the originals, Empire Strikes Back, when they're her and Luke are communicating.
Yeah. You see her force connectivity,
and you
but you don't
has
see her
it.
actually.
But she's never trained.
But she receives and she receives that. She doesn't like send out a call to Luke. Luke sends it to her, and she's just like light bulb.
Yeah.
Oh, my brother.
She's sensitive to it.
Right.
Maz can do that too, though.
Yeah.
So like, you can have force sensitivity, but you don't see her actually physically use the force like you see other force wielders do.
Dude, and then
that's why that was so surprising.
Brings herself back. You like it?
See, I can understand.
Just the CGI in that scene was bad.
Well,
it was poorly done. It looked like a high school senior project.
Well, I wonder.
It was just bad. Like her body never changes. It's just stuck in this weird like I said, witch on a broom. It's stuck in this weird like Hocus Pocus. That movie. It's that like green screen. Just hold your hand out. We'll just add the background moving kind of thing.
See, I think, I wonder if they added that in after she died. I wonder if that was something where, because I feel like they were eventually going to, because her biggest role was supposed to be episode 9, and obviously they can't do that, so I wonder if they went, because her face did look CGI, she looked CGI, and I didn't know if that was like her freezing over.
Did you notice that though her face looked younger at that point, similar to how it looked in Rogue One when they CGI'd her face to look younger?
I didn't like her.
She looked younger in that part, moving. Yeah. Oh, I loved it.
She was in a second, but it was
how
sweet.
Great is she? Had the best line in the whole movie. She just turns around and says "hope,"
but
and then it leads into a new hope. Like it's just, I love that stuff.
Tarkin CGI. I was halfway through the movie before I even realized that he was CGI.
Yeah, right.
But it was like Leia. Obviously, he hands what is that?
The little micro disc thing.
Not Wedge Antilles. Whoever the commander that hands it to him. That's some relation to Wedge. But anyways, he gives it to Leia.
Just Captain Antilles.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like you see it from behind, and I thought it was just gonna be like, here you go, General Organa, and then boom, and then she goes to turn around. I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. And then it looked like from the probably even before the prequels. It looked like the CGI that they put into the originals in the first edition.
Well, they just masked over her face. Like with Tarkin, they rebuilt. Like they had the entire structure of his face. With Leia, they actually used her real face, and she actually did everything. And then they basically just like Photoshop airbrushed right over her.
I could give it a pass just because it's like, that's crazy. And it's just cool seeing her young. Like, I don't know. I don't need to think.
Are we so spoiled
thought
by good CGI that like this stuff
we should
isn't
be?
real?
It's 2017.
Even the really crappy practical effects in the original movies at the time were like, I remember looking at that being like, that's totally real. Like you didn't think, oh, that looks fake. Like watching Die Hard now.
Oh yeah.
Just the when what was his name?
Bruce Willis.
No, the other guy.
Snake.
Falls. Yeah, Snake.
Oh,
when he falls off the building, and you're looking at it, you're like, he's just laying there on a green screen. Like you could totally tell it's fake now. But like all those movies you're looking at back then, you're watching, you're like, that's cool. Mm-hmm. That's a cool special effect.
Well, in the originals, nobody questioned it. I mean, we'll get into it. I mean, people actually did. There was negativity against whatever. But for the most part, people grew up with it. So people were like, this is amazing. And now nobody, like the people that grew up with it and love it, don't question a lot about the originals.
But the thing is, you got the younger generation coming up that can actually do this stuff on their own computer that are looking at that and be like, I could do that. That's not any better than I could do.
My gripe with her in Rogue One wasn't so much that she was in there. It's just Tarkin looked so good, and she was in there for, 30 seconds? Yeah. You couldn't just put together that, like, accuracy that you had with Tarkin to
they blew the wad.
That's the only thing.
On Tarkin.
Or if they just, like, kept her hood or whatever she was wearing, like kept it on the back of her head, and you just heard the dialogue.
Right, that's what I thought it was going to be.
That would be kind of. That
sweet,
actually would have been a really cool ending if you just heard her say "hope," and then she goes to start to turn around and that would have been cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so her coming back to life in that, and Jamie started to talk about it earlier when she comes back through the bridge on the Radis. She cuts through. What is the name of that shift? Supremacy. She cuts through like the hologram of that, and that's the foreshadowing.
So sweet.
Which is pretty cool. And then that whole movie or that whole section of it was just like surreal to me. I'm like, I fell asleep. This is not really happening. Why would they do this? Like, why would they? I felt like it was a disrespect to the character, and I thought when she came back, she would then have like this amazing role and like play some sort of hero. And
I think
it's just the old lady that was passing down her power.
All right, so yes, I completely understand the thing with like it did look weird, her just like floating through space. But Leia using the Force, dude. Come on.
All right, so I need to stop everybody right there because I don't think it was Leia using the Force. I think it was Kylo.
Nope.
Pulling his mom back.
Boo.
Nope.
Who's the most powerful one at this point?
She does with her hand.
Now that Luke's toast.
See, here's the
who's most powerful? It's Kylo.
Here's the thing about that. First of all,
she didn't use her hand. She just held her hand up. She's just sitting there like an action figure.
See, the way I read that scene is she obviously has always had the ability to use the Force, but she's clearly never trained. And I don't think it's
something...
something...
potential to use the Force.
Yeah. Well, stronger than most people because she's Anakin Skywalker's daughter. But, you... What are you doing? Right. But you see the when her hand starts moving and like the particles start moving away, like, dude, come on. And I read that as she is saying, I'm not dying. I have more to do. Yeah. This is not going to end this way. This is not going to happen.
Even though she really did complete everything she needed to do, everybody knew where they were going, what was going on.
No.
I think it would have been a beautiful death for her. I think
first of all, you have Poe, who still didn't learn. You have her and Kylo's relationship when Luke comes in. They have their final scene together. You wouldn't have that.
Yeah, of course. There's a lot of the movie that she wouldn't be in because she was gone.
But I agree. That's what would have made it good, though.
Yeah,
like that's real death.
Yeah,
no,
you're not gonna be able to tie up all your loose ends like Notorious B.I.G.
But apparently, if you are a Force wielder, you can pick when you die.
See, this is what I don't get about stuff like this, though, is because when the originals were out, nobody could, like, when you grow up with this, nobody quite, because it's such a just enveloping
It's a new concept.
story that's just, like, it inspires, and it's amazing, and blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, now, and I understand certain things or whatever, but, like, something like this where, like, Luke, learning the Force with Yoda and everything, and learning it so fast, and we'll get into Rey, whatever. But then you have Leia using the Force in space, and it becomes, I don't know, I loved it. I thought it was just, it could have been like, if the ship got blown out and she just, like, held herself in the ship, sure, that could have been a different thing. But just something where it's like, it was a hint that she might be more powerful than what anybody else has shown yet.
Do you think she knew all along that she could do this?
So, okay.
Yeah, that's
I just thought about this when you're saying that. Like we were talking, no, she has the potential to do this. Do you... I guess the only reason this would pass in my mind, if this wasn't, like, her consciously saying, okay, I just got blown out of the ship, okay, I'm going to use the Force, I'm just going to pull myself back in, somebody will be there, open the door, the airlock's good, okay, I'm still alive. I think it was, and I'm dying, and then instinct, instinctively, like, how many times, everybody who uses the Force, their master says, let go, use the Force. It's like, what other time are you in zero control? You just got blown out of a freaking spaceship.
No, I agree. I can completely see where you're coming from. The way I read it is just different. I mean, even the idea of the Force that we're given is, I mean, Snoke even says it. Darkness rises, light comes to meet it. So the Force is willing certain things to happen. And if, in a way, it's the Force propelling Leia, and also Leia controlling the Force to make herself live. But the Force is also, you're not done yet, you still have certain things you need to do.
Do you think she got Force woke?
Yeah, fine.
Definitely got Force woke. You can Force choke, maybe.
But I agree. Like, I can completely understand that scene's not for everybody. Even when I saw it, I'm like, that's weird. The second time I saw it was like, oh, this is just something that's happening. And I love that Leia was using the Force, because that's something you always speculated on.
Okay. Yep. I'm going to need a minute to explain this point. This is a theme that I have always held, that I thought held true throughout the entire 7 movies, and then this one totally flipped it on its head. The thought of, there's certain people that are more in tune to the Force, and then there's certain people that are just like, cannot utilize it, can't do anything about it. It's just like they know it's there, or like Han says, hokey religions. And then there's people like Luke, Anakin, even like Leia has it in her bloodline that she has this ability to use it. So in all 7 movies previous, I thought that was the theme, that there were just some who can and some who can't. And then this one, you see, like, I thought that's what made it so great, is that you have twins. How much closer can you be genetically? And yet here you have Luke, probably one of the more powerful Jedis you've ever seen on screen, and then Leia, who, albeit is a great commander and leader, and like obviously shows signs of it, like we just talked about, she can communicate with Luke and that, but not nearly as powerful. Granted, she doesn't have the training and such, but that she can't tap into that as readily as he can. And they're twins. And then in this movie, you got the scene like with the broom kid thing.
Yeah.
And to me, some people were like, oh, well, that could, like Anakin could do the same stuff and whatever. I'm like, yeah, okay, but I don't think that's what they were trying to get across.
No.
I think what they were trying to say is, the Force is out there. Everyone can use it.
No, that's not what they were saying.
I don't think that's
not what they were saying. All right. The prequels are clearly state that people are just born of the Force. There's certain people that can use it, certain people that can't.
And there's certain people that are Force sensitive that can't wield the Force.
Exactly. Well, they haven't been trained or understand it, whatever. But no Jedi before. I mean, who knows? I'm sure there's a story written about it, but before Anakin, there's no Jedi born of other Jedi or of other Force users. They're just had the Force. I mean, again, Snoke says once there's such a high power in one, if it's in the light or the dark, there's going to be a balance to meet it. So the Force is going to flood into some person, maybe multiple people. But I mean, the end of the movie, I love, because it's just going to the point that, I mean, what Luke says at the end, the Force is, there's going to be more Jedi. The Force is not done. People are going to be born to the Force. There always has been. I mean, during the original trilogy, there was people being born to the Force, but that had nothing to do with the story. The story was specifically on this thing. And if there was people born to the Force, Palpatine was trying to kill them off. He didn't want any.
So that was something that my wife and I watched Rogue One, New Hope, and Empire the past couple nights. And in Empire, there's a line that I always think about with Yoda, and it's when Luke runs off to Bespin to try and save Leia and Han and those guys. And when he leaves, Force Ghost Obi-Wan says that boy is our last hope. And Yoda says, no, there will be another.
Leia.
So, well, that's what I think about. Is she talking about Leia, or is he just saying the Force will continue whether it's Luke or whoever?
Yeah, it could be just generally there will be another after him, like someone else will step up.
Right.
Well, I think when the movie was made, it's Leia. But now, whenever you have the bigger realm of Star Wars, you can take it as like, well, it is Leia, but same point. There'll endlessly be Force-sensitive people.
All those kids, including Broom Kid at the end, they all seem to be really into Jedi. They were talking about it. They were like made little Jedi toys and stuff like that.
Luke.
That final scene, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think
They recreate it.
Yeah.
you think that all of them are Force sensitive, and that's the reason why they took them into slavery, maybe to kind of to get that out of them?
No.
To hide it.
Like beat the Force.
Yeah, beat the Force out of them. Because you look at these kids and like when Rose and Finn open up that one stable, the kids in there like as if they are stuck with that animal.
Yeah.
And like that's where they live, that's where they sleep, and he is in that stable. I'm wondering if maybe those kids were seen as Force sensitive. They don't even know it yet, and they had been stuck there on that planet and say, you know what, you're a stable boy now, you're nothing more.
Is the Canterbury Casinos, is that owned by Snoke?
No, I think
hear
it's
that someplace.
No, it was like the arms dealers, like the.
It's
Right,
just
yeah,
where
they
like
mentioned
the rich go to.
Yeah, I think it's probably run by
Flander.
just them, you know.
Yeah. But the kids, I don't think they were seen as Force sensitive or anything. It's a reflection of Luke and Rey, where they came from, and Anakin. Like, they just come. People in, I mean, it goes to the bigger theme of the movie that we'll get into, but it doesn't matter who you are. You don't have to come from somewhere important. You don't have to be this.
Well, like they said, Rey
important
from
thing.
nowhere.
Exactly.
Snoke apparently came from nowhere.
I mean, I think that's just what it's getting across is.
I think that's BS, but
Really?
that Rey came from nowhere.
There's
I
my
really think it's
favorite
BS. Or that might even be
thing
the point too
that Star Wars has ever done.
I like that she came from nowhere. I hated how they kept playing. This movie, to me, so many times knew it was a movie.
Yep.
Like, how many times they said, oh, may the Force be with you. The whole thing, it was just like everything was about who had
That's
raised
what Disney's
parents.
doing, though. Like, Disney bought this as Star Wars fans, and so they throw that stuff in there.
Yeah, I can see
like,
that.
oh, may the Force be with you. Oh, yeah, we also know Luke. Oh, yeah, this and that. Like, it's all that stuff. Like, when Han and Chewie show up, or even just the Millennium Falcon shows up in Rogue One, and then Han and Chewie are there, and Vader and Leia, and it's just all these throwbacks that they know people are going to jump onto that.
But in Return of the Jedi, when Mon Mothma comes in, she gives the battle plan. She says, "May the Force be with you," to everybody, because they know that is what's guiding them to their victory.
Right.
So that's always been there. So that, I mean, Disney.
I have no problem with them saying it. It was just how many times they said it. It was like Like that scene with Leia and Holdo when they're like, "Oh, may the Force be." Oh, I was gonna say may the Force be with you.
Silly.
Oh, you were gonna say it. Oh, I'm like that. Come on.
Yeah.
But I also think too
How about nobody say it?
that people are starting to. It's the sense of a new hope. Like people are starting. I mean, Rey. They know Rey is a new Force wielder, and there's hope now. Because Luke hasn't returned. He's not coming back. And Rey's this new idea, so they know that, oh, well, now there's this thing that's going to help us. It's back.
So it's like a restored faith.
Yeah. It's like restored, not faith, but just, not faith because it's true. It's actually in their face fact that, oh, this is actually going to help. Like, it's here.
Do you think it's that sort of comfort level, though? Like, it's that one thing that they've been holding on to. May the Force be with you. Like, the Force is, it's that one thing that they know is a constant, so it provides comfort.
Yeah, and it keeps them going. And it's a fact. It's not like, oh, well, it's not like faith. It's a fact. They know it's, I mean, Leia has it. Luke is the biggest legend in the galaxy now.
My father has it.
Yeah.
I have it.
So good. That trailer.
My sister has it.
We were just talking about Canto Bright, the casino planet.
Get it right, nerd.
You don't
It's
really
Canto
think,
Bite.
you don't really think that it's totally necessary when you're watching that movie. Like when I was first seeing it, I'm like, oh cool. So Rose is like pissed at these guys. Like I don't care. Like it didn't seem necessary until the end when you see the kids, and that's why I brought up that thing was, are all these kids something? Because the whole planet didn't seem necessary. They had to bring it in because it's an extended universe and they wanted to showcase it, but it just didn't seem completely necessary to me during the movie. It was sort of like a cutscene while all the real action was going on, and then here's Rose and Finn off on a little journey together. It didn't make sense until they encounter the kids and you see where that leads to. And I think that to me at least showed a purpose for that planet, but I just thought it was kind of hokey. I thought they just wanted to show it off almost.
Okay, so I swung. My emotions were a roller coaster watching those scenes. It was when they left, I thought, oh, this is cool. And then they're going and they find it out, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, one of my favorite parts of Star Wars for me, and I know Jamie too from the prequels, showing new parts of the universe.
Universe building. And
not everything has to be on Tatooine, you know?
Yeah.
And to have that planet and like they're running through the casino, showing different parts of it, I thought that was awesome. And then they kind of go farther through, and it's like they're failing at this. And I thought, why would they put that was what, half an hour? Like, they didn't even get anything. And then I went back up and said, oh, it's kind of cool, Star Wars. Like, not everything you do in life is a success. Sometimes you fail. And then they run out. They escape with those big horse things. And then Finn asks Rose, is it worth it? And she takes the collar off it, and she says, now it's worth it. And then I thought, totally went out of Star Wars and said, was this a PETA ad this whole time? Like,
I thought that it was really stupid, and I think it's just because I didn't like Rose's character in any way, but I thought it was stupid because they're just going to kill that animal anyways. Right. It's like, she didn't do anything. All she did was just take the collar off. Like, it's still going to die. They're going to track the thing down and bring it back or kill it. It's like, you didn't do anything there. But with Rose's character there, too, like, I didn't care about her like emotional disturbance when they were on Canto Bight, where she was like, "Oh, well, these guys sell to arms to whoever will pay them," and all this. I don't care. I don't care about her character whatsoever.
Yeah, she was probably the weakest character for me for sure. And
there was a build up there though. Like we didn't even know about her until like some of the later trailers. And then there was kind of like some buzz about her, and there was a big build up to like she's a really important character, and I guess the stuff she did was kind of important, but like her character itself was, I thought, super weak.
But her character was also a vessel for Finn to discuss, because the Force Awakens to me it's all about identity. Like these people thinking of who they are, who they want to be, and The Last Jedi is well, the choices you make, they actually find out who they are and where they want to go instead of who they think they are. And
cool thing on Identity too is when you're introduced to all the main characters in Force Awakens, they're all wearing masks.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing, right?
I just did my hand next to my head like a mind blown
Yeah,
thing.
I think the sound effect kind of did it.
And
right
you
there.
guys
I think
didn't
you
see
figured
that,
one out.
And him, because when she first pops up, she's a fanboy of Finn, and she's making. I mean, this whole movie is about don't deify people. These legends that people create, they're humans, and most likely they're going to fail what you think and what you hope for.
Well, it's the same thing when Finn and Rey meet Han in Rogue One, and she's like,
Force
"Wait,
Awakens.
you're the Force Awakens." She's like, "You're the Han Solo," and makes all these like references to stuff that he did and yeah, you're right. She did deify him.
Yeah, and
Luke Skywalker, I thought he was a myth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All that stuff. He's like, yeah, I knew Luke.
but it does make because at the end when they're her line is, "We're gonna win this war by fighting what we love, not what we hate." Because that is also the point of the beginning of the movie. Poe is so thinking of, we need to kill these guys. I mean, for a good reason, obviously, but he's willing to sacrifice mostly everybody in the process, instead of thinking, we need to hold on to as many people as possible to get this, like, the whole overarching mission, like, to succeed.
Which is funny because that's how he was raised in the we need an army to defeat, as opposed to I'm doing it on my own. Like they weren't raised to be independent. You know, when he was a stormtrooper. But
then you get the thing of also where this movie goes is ego, and like he knows he's the best, and he's going with it. But it goes with the line that we fight with. We're gonna win this war by love, and so it does go with like her. I do get it. Like that's but. Her letting the animal free is, yes, we punched a hole through this terrible city full of these terrible people, and letting the thing go is not that we just destroyed it, but we're also going to let this thing go, and we're going to, it's, I don't know.
It's small victories, maybe? Is that kind of the theme there?
Yeah.
Small victories win a war.
And just not using the thing like the animal, is just being like, well, we destroyed this and whatever, now whatever happened, like letting it go, not just being like whatever. No, I could definitely see, like, did that have to be in there? But it's part of the theme.
Yeah, I guess. Well, it was more character development for Rose, I think, more than anything else, which I didn't really care for a character, so.
Dude, okay, so Battle Crate, I want to get back to Battle Crate. Super disappointing to me.
Yep. Agree.
So
Jamie disagrees.
When they're
that's why he's here.
flying those the Salt Walkers,
they're
flying those, and Finn is gonna make those ultimate sacrifice. I was like, wow, did not expect this at all.
I
would have been okay with him going into that, sacrificing it.
Because I totally dig his character.
I would imagine that they would make a big explosion. I would imagine that would make a big explosion that would have knocked all those
Guerrilla Walkers, ATM-6,
all those bad boys out. Like, that would have been awesome. I wasn't scared that explosion would kill Kylo. I just figured he would just, like, Kylo pop
he'll be fine.
Into whatever, like his mom did.
Everybody's doing popping stuff.
Everybody's got popping. And, and then Rose hits him, and I thought, oh, okay, whatever. And then he runs over. They're the only two people in this whole thing from all these walkers.
Well,
nobody shoots him.
Nobody shoots him. You can't just be like, oh,
I actually, when Rose did that, I think I clenched my fists and my teeth, just in absolute rage. I'm like, you're so stupid.
Yeah.
Let him do it.
See, the only thing I could think about that, and that is probably the one thing where it's like, I don't know, but where they landed, I could take as, well, they were so close to the walkers that the walkers can't
They can't shoot that far down.
Whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
But also,
Because they got that weak spot in the back of their
Yeah,
head.
you could pop out some ground troops.
but also, it's going to the theme of the movie that Finn, through all of this, I mean, in The Force Awakens, at the beginning of this movie, he wasn't this hero. He was trying to find Rey and get her out of harm's way.
True.
That's why he was trying to take the beacon somewhere else. And at the end of the movie, when he was going to sacrifice himself, he became now who he is. He is a rebel.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to do this.
Well, it was the thing, like what I was talking about before with Holdo and a couple other times, is that with the rebels, the thing is they have something to sacrifice for.
Yeah.
They have a purpose.
Yeah.
And he's all of a sudden discovered that he also has something to sacrifice for.
Yeah.
I get it wasn't the plot point that he's gonna kill him, he's gonna sacrifice himself, and then someone doesn't let him. It was that it just felt forced, like that. It was her, and that. Like, then he runs over and flips up the lid, and then she's like, "Oh, we fight for what we love," and then they kiss each other, and then she dies.
Freaking dies.
I'm like, come
Yeah.
on.
Well, she doesn't die. But
oh right, they dragged her back.
But
I hope.
I
she
wish she
died.
would have died.
well, the thing about her kissing him, I mean, it's made clear in the movie that he's like, "What is going on?" Like,
Yeah.
he didn't expect that to happen.
Well, because he wanted to kiss Rey.
Yeah.
You know,
But,
it's like a teenage drama now for some reason.
But his thing, he was going to sacrifice. He knows who he is. Her journey was, her idea was, save what you love. Don't let this person. We need this person. This person. We need everybody we can get.
Yeah, there's only like 12 left.
Yeah, right.
So.
They can all fit on the Falcon.
Yeah, there you go.
We need everybody we can get. We can't let this person go. Even though in the background, yes, there's a hole being blown in, and if whatever, didn't happen, then people could go in and everybody's going to die. But, to carry it on.
So, great.
Yeah, it's so
let's get there.
disappointing.
Well,
Let's be there right now.
Okay. All
That
right.
is so disappointing. All right, how many times in those lead up episodes up to this one in all of our podcasts, how many times did I bring up Crate with just so much enthusiasm and excitement?
Did you say Cantabite wrong? Because I used to always say crate wrong.
No, I just said it wrong.
Every time you would say crate, I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's Crete.
No, but every single one of our mistakes tonight is brought to you by 12 Gates Brewing and their West Coast style IPA. Absolutely delicious, a little bit of citrus in it, and that's our beer of the week.
Yeah, well done.
And
that's
also
all of our
the
mistakes
ease
are
of
brought
going
to
through
you
your
there.
mistakes.
Yeah, so on Crate, how many times did I talk about it and describe it like in great detail of how cool it is, and then it just wasn't cool.
Can I tell you how I envisioned Crate?
I would love that.
Mid-movie, this is what I thought. So before Luke shows up, they have the walkers come out. They do the salt flyer thing.
Which were super cool.
Yep.
I really liked those a lot.
Cool. Again, the visuals
I was bummed
of
about
Crate were amazing.
yeah.
I thought that was
The build up with the guerrilla walkers with Kylo standing and looking over their construction, and then you see them show up and they just didn't do anything.
So they get there, they're like, oh, wow, there's only, a dozen of us that made it. And they put out that beacon. And I thought, okay, no one's thinking about it now. They don't make any other mention of it other than, I think somebody just says, like, Leia, the beacon's been transferred. Or it's, what did they say?
Sent or something.
It's been sent, received.
Received, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is that? Like the red text thing you get on text? Like,
Yeah.
So
it just says red.
Yeah.
They're like, come on, man. Don't respond back for like 4 hours.
so then
Oh man, I didn't get it. I'm sorry, man. I was doing something.
Oh, there's something weird with my phone.
So I picture then you got the Luke thing come in, and I'll be honest, first time I watched it, I didn't pick up. Like I said, he looks younger there, and I like made a joke.
He didn't look younger until the blast started happening, though, and then he steps out of it.
You saw it in his beard.
See,
He talked to Leia.
I'm a
Did he
nut
have his dark
about,
hair and everything, though?
I'm a nut about like design and like construction, just visual things. I noticed it right away, but yeah, there's nothing to pick up else. You can notice it right away because he's got a dark beard, shorter. He's got dark hair.
Well, yeah, right.
It's in the exact same.
I really
visual.
wanted him to step out there without a beard though, and be old Luke or young Luke. Old school.
When he stepped out, I didn't notice it, but I made a joke to our dad was in there. I'm like, "What? Did you just throw a little just for men in there before the scene or something?" But anyways, he comes out, and I thought,
for men.
"Wow." So, I'm like, "This is gonna be great." He's gonna have the standoff with Kylo in like the middle of the battlefield. It's gonna be like this biblical fight, and then over the top of the Rebel base comes the Black Squadron X-Fighters.
Oh, so sick.
Like all
Poe's leading them too.
Well,
he
probably not Poe.
He jumped out the backside and he
just some ally
picked them up. Oh, all right,
that they picked up with, and then here you got some TIE fighters come in. Sure, throw them in the mix.
That would have been sick.
And then it was like the last half hour of the movie that Crate started. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is gonna end like mid battle scene or something. Like something's gonna go down, and then they're gonna cut it off.
See, I see that as like when I was going through the movie and just what I think of like awesome things to see that would blow my mind at first, but then if you break down story points and like the feeling you get from it from rewatching it and breaking it down, that wouldn't have, and it would have ruined Luke's entire that the whole ending was perfect for what it's trying to tell.
Yeah, and it sort of shows to that point that I said before, that like if you are strong enough with the Force, you kind of choose when you die. Somebody can kill you. You just pick when you're ready to go.
Which I want to bring up. I think Luke was ready to die when Rey shows up.
Oh, totally.
And then he was
ready to peace out. Yeah.
Why are you here, man? Why?
Yeah, he was visually pissed.
Yeah, he was.
When she shows up and he realizes that she is, force wielding. He was like, "Oh man, I didn't want to get into this."
Well, I think he was up there to. I think it's in the visual dictionary that he wears the robes, the traditional Jedi robes for like ritual and for like.
Oh, interesting.
Like he was ready to die, so he's gonna wear them as like the last Jedi. I think he was up there to just like peace out, I'm gone, and then she shows up, and he's interested, which is amazing about just that dichotomy of people, but of like he's ready to do that, but he's also slightly interested, but he wants nothing to do with it.
He's so frustrated with her. I did like that about him because he's an old man who's been living on his own for too long.
I like when R2 replayed the Leia message.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. Little tug on the heartstrings there. Yeah. I really hope that was added in after she died, just as a little kind of tribute to her too.
I think it was just a plot point. I think it was always
it worked out well as a plot point, but I like to think that it was a tribute because that was just so cool.
Well, if it wasn't there, R2 would have nothing to do. So I think it was a thing.
Do you think he's jealous of BB-8? He's like, look what I can do. And he just has like this hologram picture stored in there from 40 years ago.
That's the only thing he's got left.
He's like, this is all I got. This dude does thumbs up with flames and stuff.
I have half a map.
I got this hologram. I can't find him like totally. I can get you kind of close, but
well, you know what's great about that
dementia's
scene?
Kicking in.
Yeah.
What's great about that scene is R2's just this like vulgar, just swearing like you're on this island, and Luke's like sacred island. Relax.
Shut up.
What should we get into? Should we just get into when Rey shows up?
Sure.
I still wanted to talk about Crate.
All right, let's get back there. All right, let's get back there
about that because we'll get back to Rey.
So what was? Go ahead.
So Crate to me, I had just watched Empire, and Crate to me is the inverse of Hoth.
Yeah.
So in Hoth, they were having this battle as a distraction, so they could evacuate the rest of the rebels, and the ones who fought, there was a handful of them. Mm-hmm. On Crate, they had to force evacuate to this place, and there was only a handful of rebels that could fight. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, is it like a mirroring of the stories?
Did they force evacuate though? Because here's okay, so little extended universe stuff, and I think it was in the comics, I want to say, where Leia and Luke actually go to Crate at some point in the past, and they find that they're drawn to it.
That's the EU,
because
I
it's the
think.
yeah.
Which doesn't matter anymore. So.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying.
Well, that's
No, I know it's the canon. I think it is at least. But yeah, so they're kind of drawn to this place, and then they find that it's this like Jedi holdout.
Rebels.
Because it's on the outer reaches and stuff, and they sort of hang out there for a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so Bail Organa, like I can't think of
he was there, like
low
that
key.
was his thing.
He supported the rebels, and he bought a lot of the stuff that was still there on crate, and that's when Luke and Leia went, and that's how she got like real big into the rebellion when she found out that her finger quotes dad was supporting it.
Right, and I think that that's why crate was so important, and I wish they would have at least brought something up, like she's there and she's like, oh, I remember this place, or like maybe they kind of showed that because she just walked right in there, and like knew where stuff was and things. Maybe that's what it was, but I wish she would have said something like, oh, I remember this, or even like this feels familiar, or just something like that, sort of a throwback. And
I seen it a second time and I didn't exactly pick up on anything. I mean, maybe after a few viewings we'll be like, oh
yeah,
whatever.
We have to see it like 6 or 7 more
I think
times.
these new movies are doing a good job of giving it back to the originals, even sometimes the prequels, and a lot to the comics in that.
Dude,
they're doing a good job. Rebels, Clone Wars,
think not just like giving back, but it's like expanding the story and bringing it bigger. It's making everything better, making more sense, making it more impactful.
Well, I gotta tell you, I'm really loving the new Marvel, the Star Wars canon comics that are coming out now. I read through the Mace Windu and Darth Vader stories, and they're just phenomenal. Not only well made artistically, but also really well written, and it's like legit content, and you can see it tied in through a lot of things, and it makes, like, the Mace Windu one at least makes the prequels that much more enjoyable to watch, because you really fully understand where he came from, what his motivations are, who his friends were that were, spoiler alert, killed, and you see a lot more. And then and then Kit comes in there too, which is kind of cool because you see him show up in the prequels and you have no idea where he came from, and he's in the comic. He's a really big character in the comics too.
Kitster?
Yeah, he's Mace's sort of sidekick in the comics, so it's really cool. I would definitely recommend.
Kit Fisto?
Kit Fisto.
Oh, okay.
I would definitely recommend reading those to get a little bit more.
I want to do. This is not super related, but I want to do a breakdown of like every one of the movies.
Yeah, we can.
So there's
You
9
brought
right
that
now.
up
Rogue
in
One.
the very first episode.
Yeah, I still want to do it. Dude.
And we still haven't, but we were gonna do that leading up to this one, but then there was so much other cool stuff that happened in the world that we kind of made episodes about. But yeah, we could do that. We're gonna appease Zach at some point.
Dude, just like sit down. We all watch Phantom Menace. We all come in here. We talk about
Well,
like
you show
how it
up
ties
for
into
like
the greater
you
story.
show up for like every 5th episode. So I mean, maybe if you show up for a few in a row, we could do that.
Just to bring it back to Last Jedi. Think about the prequels. I mean, we'll get more into it when we get down Luke's path, but the prequels are just not validated, but have so much more, I guess, validated, like, weight to them even more.
Yes.
By
I
what
totally
Luke
agree.
explains and
Totally
everything.
agree.
And it's like, well, that's what we all knew, and that's what was being brought forward in the stories. But now that it's like, no, that's exactly what's being brought up.
I think that the thing is too with that is they're sort of trying to do that. Like, I think that they're looking at the prequels, because again, these are written by fans basically. So I think they're looking at the prequels and thinking like, how can we tie that into the new stuff? Because we have to make some connection, because some of that stuff is so disconnected and just sort of in that one little time frame that they need to be able to tie it together and show that there were consequences for things that happened in the prequels and in the originals too. So back to Crate. So we see how powerful Rey really is after that battle on Crate.
Picking up rocks.
Oh, yeah. Just freeing everybody and holding them in the air too, while she's like, saying hi to everybody. That's really cool, and we see some of that similar power that Kylo's got. Mm-hmm. We finally see that in Rey. We see it a little bit in the battle scene in the throne room and stuff like that, but we see it even more so with that, and the picking up rocks. That's a cool little throwback to Empire and stuff. And
it's just
nice.
The point that she brings up when she's talking to Luke, the Force is you pick up rocks, and it's just tying it back to this is the simplest thing, but it's impactful.
And you look at how useful that one little simple thing is.
Yeah.
Now you can pick up a whole bunch of rocks and save everybody's lives. Yeah. It's really cool.
In Crate, now, why exactly did you have a problem with it? It wasn't.
So it wasn't
climactic.
Enough. It wasn't enough for me. Yeah,
really?
I wanted to see way more of the planet, which we kind of did when Rey and Chewie are flying through with the Millennium Falcon, and the Porg that looks like a stuffed animal flies up against the window. I hated that shot. Completely hated that shot. Rian Johnson, I don't like you anymore because of that. And
Jesus,
but yeah, that's all it took right there.
Pretty
was
harsh.
I'm done. I hated that shot. It looked like a carnival stuffed animal slamming up against the window. It was so stupid. And we're going to get into other things like that, because I know Zach has also mentioned that he hates a few of these things too. But when they're flying through the caverns and stuff like that, super cool. Let's just never talk about it again. Like, I don't get that. No, I would love to talk about it for days, but they just don't bring it up again. They were like flying through. You see all these like red crystals and stuff like that, and we're just not going to talk about it.
Because, I mean, it's what everything through this movie is, and through every Star Wars movie, and any good story. It's about the characters, and it's about the story. All this visual stuff that, it's amazing to look at, but it has nothing to do with, it's about the characters.
That was a Jedi base, and I think it was a kyber crystal mining base too. I think that has something to do with something. I mean, it's got to have something. There was a reason why they were there, and there was a reason why they were mining. It wasn't for salt.
It was an old rebel base.
Flavoring their mashed potatoes
during the Empire.
I know, but there was a reason why it was there, and I have a feeling that has something to do with those.
But until we actually know, we can't just go.
Or maybe the foxes that they were powering their ships with.
Actually, I'll go with that. Mm-hmm. But
gas fox.
But Crate to me was great because it shows if you had this amazing saviors coming in and saving the day, that completely gets rid of Luke's amazing story. It gets rid of the tension of there's a handful of rebels left and the Empire is going to murder them. Then we're done. And we're done.
I guess the point that Zach and I are making on that, though, is that stuff could have happened anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
It didn't have to happen on Crate.
No, I agree with that.
If they were going back to a rebel base, kind of like Jeddah was, and I think that was sort of a better way to show that when they were on Jeddah and they had the old temple and everything like that too. I think that they really dug a little more into it. I wanted to see that with Crate. Like, there was a reason why the base was there, and it might have just been because it was on
why was there a rebel base on
and stuff like that.
It was out in the outer regions. The Empire didn't exactly know where it was. They've had battles there, I'm sure. That's why the rebel base is there. But now when you say it could have been anywhere, what's important for it to what was important for you to make it important?
I think the reason it was disappointing to me is, like a lot of these things I'm realizing is the main source of my disappointment is how many hours we spent talking about this and speculating on it.
I think that must be
and in my mind, I'm like, wow, this would be perfect if they did this. And then they didn't, and I thought, wow, terrible.
See, and
that might have been why I walked out, and I was like, that was amazing visually.
Yeah.
Because we had talked about it for months leading up to this, and everything we wanted to see, and everything we definitely thought was going to be there, and it wasn't.
Well, this is my biggest love of the story they're putting forth of that. Well, first of all, it's our fault that we speculate on all this stuff, and
true.
I hope this happens. It doesn't matter what you hope. Rian Johnson's telling the story, and it's what's going to be best suit where he thinks the story should go. And if there's people that disagree and like see the movie for what it is and disagree, yeah, that's fine.
Kathleen Kennedy's signing off, and I think it's her that I have a problem with. But Ryan Johnson, stop using stuffed animals. That's just.
Like the idea that why are they on Crate? Well, they're floating through space on fumes, and they have to. There's the nearest planet, and it happens to be a rebel base.
So that was the whole thing I was talking about with Luke being there before. I think that she had somehow landed them close to that planet, knowing. She probably doesn't realize how in tune she is with the Force. Somehow knowing that they needed to get there.
It was Holo that did that.
But hold on a minute. These are the comics, and these are things that it's canon, but the movies are canon. I mean, even in the novelization of The Force Awakens, Poe and Rey meet. Mm-hmm. In this movie, they meet for the first time. So that stuff is the movies come first. Everything else is sure.
But there's also those other stories that they need to keep in mind.
Yeah, but at the same time, if the best storytelling, if you're going to be hampered by, well, in this comic somebody wrote this, so it's gonna.
That's what's great about the extended universe, though, is you have all that other information behind it. Like, how many times has Andrew brought up the Vader finding the planet where they had the prison and stuff like that, and seeing like what the Jedi actually did to prisoners and stuff. How many times has he brought that up? That really, when you go back and watch the movies with that information in your mind, it makes the way that he reacts to things all that more understandable.
Mm-hmm. Oh, of course. I mean, you read any of those books, like if you watch the movies, you're like, wow, he just like hair trigger flip sides.
Yeah.
But it's not. I mean,
it's a lot of.
There's even context in the movies if you pay attention.
Now, since it was in a story where Luke and Leia, I mean, I know nothing about this, whatever. But if Luke and Leia went to Crate before, do you wish it was just a different planet that they went to, where it was no connection to that? Is that what you're?
No, I don't care about that. I think that it was the way that they handled it in the movie didn't make sense in that extended universe thing, just because of like I knew that information already, and then seeing that Leia and Luke obviously had no idea where they were.
Now is this?
They just happened to land there.
Now is this canon stories, or is this just?
I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was.
And then is this in the past like
canon
5 years?
I don't think it was Legends.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, the way I take, I mean, I don't read any of that stuff, so the way I take it is the movies are the story.
Yeah.
Other stuff, it's just added flavor to let you know whatever if you want to. But then you could pick and choose. Well,
hold you over till the next Star Wars movie.
Yeah, whatever. Really. But with Crate, there's no reason. I mean, it's the same thing with Snoke, like which I 180'd on that. But it doesn't matter. Like, they're on this planet, they're trying to survive, and that's the point. That is all there is to it. Who cares about this planet? It's a planet. Get on, get off, get safe.
But like Endor was just a planet, moon, and it was still super cool. Yeah. At least for me. A lot of people didn't like it.
Yeah.
I loved it because Jedi's probably my favorite movie. And
I think Jedi's mine too.
Yeah, I love Endor. I think it was super cool. I love that it's like this weird forest planet thing, and I love the speeders are probably one of my favorite vehicles, and I love Leia's role in that movie. I think that really cemented her as like not only a hero but like a superhero, and I loved everything about it. I love playing bongo drums on
skulls
and helmets.
Cannibal
and stuff.
Ewoks.
Yeah,
not cannibal
bears.
Yeah.
So do you wish that it was like a more visually interesting planet?
No, I think it was definitely visually interesting. I just don't think that we had enough background told to us.
The planet itself wasn't a plot point.
Yeah, the planet wasn't used for the planet. Like at one point they're like cruising through the caverns and stuff, and they use like a hole in a mountain to hide in. But I don't feel like what made the planet unique was used to their advantage, like Endor was.
Okay, but I will say, well, they didn't have anything. I mean, the wolves helped them to escape.
Yeah.
But it was a planet. It happened to be in their path, and it wasn't. I mean, it's the same way with like going to the movie, being like, oh, I need to learn about Snoke, and I was on that page. I'm like, he's such an interesting character. I want to know more about him. And then obviously what happens in the movie, for sure.
Yeah.
And he can still be somebody. People are like, oh, he doesn't matter.
I have a whole
he can
theory.
still be somebody.
I have a whole theory on that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
Thought there.
And I completely understand where it ruins the story if you're going to start Wikipediaing and talking too much about things, because you're supposed to be
podcast.
But the story that it's trying to tell is you're supposed to be with these characters, and these characters are the point of the story. They don't care why they're there. No. They're there to survive.
Yeah.
So if they don't care why they're there, why was there's no point to bring stuff up.
Because they're not supposed to know that we're watching them.
Yeah, right.
Like, we know we're watching them. It's like a character in a book, you know? They don't know they're a character in a book because they don't exist.
Well, it's like when J.J.
Abrams
wrote The Force Awakens. When he wrote it, Rian Johnson immediately started writing his take on The Last Jedi. He never seen the movie. He didn't know there was going to be this insane speculation on things of people. He just wrote the story based on JJ's story and what would be the best story to go off of that. And that's the best way to do it. Yeah, it is our fault for being like, well, what's this? Oh, they didn't give us
speculating so much.
It is, because that has nothing to do with the story.
Can I tell you the one thing that Rian Johnson did change after everything, all the reaction had come out, was Yoda being a puppet as opposed to CGI.
Did he?
Yeah. He was originally going to CGI him, and he was also going to have Alec Guinness CGI in there as well, like they did with Tarkin, like post-mortem CGI.
Yeah.
And he was originally going to do that, but then after seeing so much flack from all the CGI from the prequels, and then Rogue One, and then also in Force Awakens, he just decided not to do that.
Well, he was thinking about having maybe Ewan McGregor, but then he's like, which I think is an amazing thought, is he has no connection with Luke.
Right.
So it kind of wouldn't really
Force Ghost Hayden
well.
Christensen would have been all that.
Well, that's, yeah.
Sorry,
I was looking at you the entire time.
I know.
You see the ears, and then Zach's just like...
I know. I look over and I'm like, oh, please be Hayden Christensen behind him. I want to see Yoda like walk out of the way, and then you just see Hayden Christensen walk in.
Hayden Christensen, I got nothing against Hayden Christensen. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
well, it doesn't make sense
it's
just
like
because
Ewan.
Luke never knew him at that age. So
no
Luke
sense.
knew him as an old man.
Like, George Lucas justified Hayden Christensen's Force Ghost being in there as that was the last time Anakin was good. But it's like that. Then why? Then the original stories don't make any sense, because the whole thing is his redemption of it.
What's
and
the
if
point of the
he's not
redemption?
actually good at the end, then why did you have these movies?
Then he can't become one with the Force if he wasn't a good guy. Because it seems like it's only the good guys who do that.
No, I can agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
But then there would be the weird thing of like, why don't you just show him up as like the crevice in his head looking zombie?
Yeah.
Why did you show him as this guy that we know nothing about?
Blue growing zombie.
It's like, oh, he's good. Okay, but why is he turned back to this guy that he's not?
Yeah, right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, right, because actually he never looked like that.
Yeah,
like the original Force Ghost Anakin. He never looked like that. He never looked like just a normal old guy.
Yeah.
He was always jacked up.
Yeah,
so, that's a good point. That's so stupid.
Wait, no, it wasn't.
Huh?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Darth Vader?
In the originals on Endor.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, no, they show him he's got hair and everything.
Yeah, but he was never that guy when he died.
Like that.
He was Vader.
Oh,
He never was
right,
that guy,
okay.
period.
Yeah.
Because he never got to that age where he had hair and was like looked normal.
Maybe that was like
he looked normal,
that was
like
his arc if he would have remained good.
Well, that's stupid. But then why does Alec Guinness look like just a normal old guy?
Because he was a normal old guy when he died.
Yeah. Why did Yoda look like old Yoda?
Yeah.
He just they could have.
Yeah, there is that thing where it's like, I mean, that's what you got to do with all
Force Ghost
stuff.
age then? If you're saying that's what he would have looked like if he got to that point.
Yeah.
If he was a Force Ghost age, then Yoda Force Ghost would have been like super old in this one.
I mean, that's the thing with Star Wars in general. It's based off of The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. It's based on every mythological story ever written, just based on the hero's journey. And that's why I see Star Wars. Star Wars is more to me of the impact in the feel and the story and the mythos of it and the inspiration of it and the ideas that it's getting forth more than the movies themselves put across. Because you could pick everything apart and whatever, but the stories and the ideas it's getting across is amazing.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, to me, that's what it's always been.
Just a quick one to throw it out there. Is Star Wars the new Twilight?
No.
Is it the
never seen Twilight.
new teeny bopper film?
No.
And I wanted to make that point because I want to get into it with Zach on the comedy that's used in this particular movie. It was a little bit in Force Awakens too, but in this one it came out, and Zach made the point in the post show after we had seen it that it was Guardians of the Galaxy-esque comedy.
I wouldn't go that far, but I would definitely say there was some stuff where it's like, I mean, I've seen it twice. You guys seen it once. The second time,
You're way cooler than us.
No, I'm just saying. I'm like, because the originals, you see certain things that happen, and I wasn't there when they came out, and maybe you'd be like, huh. But seeing it the second time, you're just like, oh yeah, that's just the thing that's said in it, and whatever. But I can say, like, there's certain things where if they weren't there, I wouldn't care.
Well, I think as long as it goes along with what the character does, like when like Poe has that exchange with Hux right in the beginning of the movie, and it's like, okay, that's kind of, that has some continuity because that's how he started talking to Kyla, the whole, oh, you talk first, I talk first kind of thing.
Yeah, I hated that.
And I didn't like that at the time, but now then they brought this in, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of his character. Like, he's arrogant, and you know, he just kind of runs his mouth all the time. But then Hux started playing into it, and I was like, what am I watching right now?
Right.
And then there was a lot of times where it's just like, are they going for another joke?
Well,
like,
the worst was Luke taking his lightsaber and just throwing it over his shoulder and walking away.
I love that.
And I was like, that's so... No, it was just, to me, I think it was hokey, the way that they did it. I totally understand the sentiment in that he doesn't care anymore, but he could have just taken it and dropped it. Like, you didn't have to throw it, throwing it over his shoulder.
Or turn back around.
Yeah, or not take it at all.
Walk around her.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can see that for sure. I mean, the way it's... When I seen it the second time, I was waiting for that, because when I first saw it, I thought, am I going to feel, like, jarred by it? But the second time seeing it, I thought, well, no, I think that's we're putting ourselves into that scene going, is that trying to be funny? I don't think it's trying to be funny. I think it's just, get out of here. Just get out of here. And then he walks away.
Okay, so here's what Zach is saying, Guardians of the Galaxy humor, is like something's happening, really dramatic music, then the music stops.
Yeah, I can
and
see
the
that.
dude from Parks and Rec says something stupid.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's what happened, was it was really dramatic, and then the music stopped and he threw it over his shoulder and walked away. Like,
and the other thing that just like threw the spark, really lit the fire for me was everyone in the theater laughed, and I thought, that is not a time when I wanted to laugh.
I didn't want. It wasn't a moment that was that for me.
But I'm saying that environment like kind of threw me off. Everybody else laughing.
The whole point of the tension breaking comedy is so that you don't have a heart attack in the movie theater, and that I don't think was a tense enough scene for me to be physically hurt by it, and I don't think that it warranted something like that. I think that they could have gotten the point across with, like I said, him just dropping it or just like turning and walk away, not taking it. You would have had the same sentiment that he doesn't care, because that's what they wanted to. That was sort of the beginning of, I don't care about this anymore.
Yeah,
I'm just a crazy old guy
for the movie.
But what I think about that scene is, I mean, the building up and the music stopping. It's making the audience, with every speculation and every hope. I mean, it's going with the theme of the movie. Everything is to make you, like, you've built these people up. You've built Luke up for whenever you grew up with it, and you're going, what's he gonna do? And then it's stopping the music for you to go, oh, what's he gonna do? And then he throws it, and you're, whoa, what? This is not what I expected. And I don't think it's supposed to be taken as a joke. I mean, audiences take it like, oh, that's funny. I don't think it's a joke at all, and it's going towards this thing of like, oh, this is Luke, and he's throwing this thing that was his father's, and then it was his, and it means all this. And then to him, I mean, later on in the story, you figured out no, it means nothing to him. He's get out of here. I went, no, this means nothing. And I think, yeah, if he didn't take it, there would be that thing where it's like he's looking at it, but he's nervous of it, and he doesn't take it, or he just drops it. But the thing of just throwing it away is like, I'm done with this. I take it. It means nothing to me now. It's not like I'm nervous of it or I don't want to be around it. It's just, okay, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I took it.
Yeah, I totally see that. I mean, it definitely could be that theme playing through with him, and like you were saying before, building people up, you know, creating deities and building them up as legends, and then they react differently than you were expecting.
Because they're human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I liked about Mark Hamill in this was I had, watching him, I kind of, there was some tones of regret in what he's done. Maybe he felt like he didn't do enough, or whatever. Sure. But I thought that was cool.
You see that in Obi-Wan, you see that in Yoda, you see that in Anakin, you see that in everybody, that there is that sense of guilt in every Jedi Master, because they know that they can do anything, and then they don't.
Or they can't.
Yeah.
With everything
they can't do enough.
Yeah.
For it.
Like they have all this power, but he turned bad.
Mm-hmm.
I can't control that type of thing. And what's and to go back to like Luke throwing the thing, with this getting into the head of the character, I think that was more of a scene for being in the head of Rey, because Rey built him up. I mean, in the first like, I mean, I don't know how long, like 10 minutes or whatever, every scene they cut back to the first couple scenes of ahk-to, she's naming all these things like Master Luke, your sister Leia, and then Luke goes, oh, where's Han, and like all these things that are these built up giant like things, but then when you get to it, they're just people. And you're in Rey's head, and she's thinking, is he going to take it? And now he's going to teach me, and now everything's going to be great. I mean, that's her whole journey, trying to figure out who her parents are. Like, this is going to be fixed. And then he just throws it, and you're feeling what she's feeling.
It's kind of like you have like this close group of friends, and you know everything there is to know about them, and then you're talking about them to someone else, and you're like, oh, you don't know those things about them. You don't know the background story and stuff like that. Like, they were just this close group of people that, they did a lot of legendary things throughout the galaxy, but really it was just these few people that were together. Yeah. And they were just this close group of friends. And it was real similar to the TV show Friends, where they like married each other and stuff. Whatever, but...
And he was just trying to get power converters. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Tashi Station
wanted, man. Like Randall going, is there like a section that just hates Luke? You're like, no.
So one of my favorite things I've noticed of watching these is she's seen the prequels years ago. I mean, barely remembered main plot points. And so watching them with her now is really cool, because it gives me a whole totally different insight on stuff that's going on. So we finished Empire the other night, and she goes, is there like a subculture that just like hates Luke? I'm like, what are you talking? No, it's Luke Skywalker. What do you mean? She's like, I don't know, he's just like whiny, he's really arrogant, he never listens to other people.
Andrew feels the same thing about him, because he always calls him Farm Boy Luke. Like in the prequels, or in the originals, he always calls him Farm Boy Luke. Like, I don't think he likes him.
Well, he should talk to her, because it was just interesting to hear. And also, like, I was telling Jeremy earlier, it was like, oh man, I remember like Hoth is about to start, and I'm like, this is the best scene in Star Wars. And then it's like 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and she was like, when does it get good? I'm like, nope, that's
not what I
remembered it differently.
Well,
that's what was great about when we did the marathon. When we did the Last Jedi Standing marathon, where we watched all the movies in chronological order, it was really cool to go back and rewatch all those movies together, because like you see them separately, like I'll just pop one of them in here and there and watch it and like show it to the kids or something like that. But like to watch them all in chronological order, where you're sitting there really focused in on a dark room with the projector up and everything like that, we're really focused in on it like you're in the movie theater. you do see a lot of that stuff where you're like, oh, I can't wait for this part. And then you're like, wait, that wasn't as cool as I remembered it being. And maybe it is that, like Jamie was saying, where you build up these characters. Maybe you build up these scenes in the movies where it's like really awesome. And I mean, I always remember as a kid the scenes with Yoda training Luke as being like really amazing and super powerful. And like when Obi-Wan comes in as Force Ghost and like kind of talks him up and gets him back in the game, I remember that being so powerful and stuff. But then you see all these memes and stuff and like videos on the internet like just making fun of the whole thing. You're like, actually that was really goofy. And then you see a picture of like the puppet master with Yoda over his shoulder. You're like, this is so dumb. But
it was amazing at the time.
It's so cool. Yeah, the first time you see that, and even like the 20th time you see that, you're like, this is awesome. This is so cool. And that's what makes Star Wars great, is that you can see past all that stupid, hokey crap and see the real story behind it, which is so well written.
And it's analogous. It's the story of life.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the movie, but the movie has such an amazing aspect and visual aspect and like setting to it that it's the best. It's amazing.
So we got to talk about Snoke. Obviously, he was a huge character in this, but he wasn't. So the build-up, though, it was similar to everything else that we've talked about so far, where the build-up was so big. And was Snoke the humanized version of a Porg? So much build-up. Nothing happens, but I have a great theory on that, and I want to hear Zach talk about the throne room.
Me too.
Yeah, me too.
Where's Snoke?
So I think Snoke, like everybody else, I was super jacked up to see, this awesome new character. You only see him in a hologram, much like you only saw the Emperor in the hologram in the Empire. And I thought this would be cool. You get his backstory. It's awesome. And then when I watched it, I hated that they killed him. And then now I see he was more or less just a vehicle to show how strong Kylo was. And in The Force Awakens, like, everyone's like, oh my god, Andrew, this is for you. Everyone says, oh, how did Rey defeat Kylo? Kylo sucks. Oh my god. He just got freaking shot.
Which nobody ever brings up.
In the kidney or whatever.
Nobody ever brings up.
I don't know.
And was still strong enough to pull through and defeat Finn and like all this stuff. Yeah.
After he fought Finn. Yeah.
We'll bring up the high pants thing. It's a bandage. Probably a bandage. I don't know.
Could be.
Oh, high pants.
Oh, the high-waisted pants. Like he's like a 15-year-old chick.
Yeah.
But also, it's whatever. But continue.
It's a fashion statement. That's what Kylo would say.
So, right, just a vehicle for, just to show how powerful he is. And what I really loved about the throne room scene, obviously the fight between the Praetorian Guards and Rey and Kylo was awesome.
So much fun to watch.
To see, I'm getting excited. So
Zach took his hood off, just so everybody knows, because he's just sweating so much talking about this.
So Snoke's not a Sith. That's been made obvious to everyone, but he's still kind of like
Forcey.
Yeah, he's Forcey.
Forcey.
And he still respects Sith ways. So, like, for instance, the rule of two, right? So he takes Kylo under his wing. That's kind of like master apprentice situation. Now we've seen, or rather, we've heard that is the power. Like, that's the Sith coming of age. Like, the apprentice overthrows the master. They become the master. They take on their own apprentice after that. But we've never seen it, and it was cool to see it. So, like we've talked about it a couple minutes ago, is like a main theme of this was ego, hubris. And here Snoke just thinks he's playing Hux and Kylo in tandem like a fiddle. Like, he's the maestro of this orchestra on the New Order, the First Order. And to have that all just come crumbling down right in front of him in the exact way that he would never think would happen, because he thinks he has this, like, ultimate trump card against this guy.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. Good storytelling.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Pulled them all. Straight slice.
Yeah.
When I first...
And he lost his hand, which I liked, because...
Yeah, dude. It was just laying there.
Yeah. Snoke sushi.
Dude. And just the sound of the body dropping.
Yeah.
Weight, and you're
thumping like the
whoa.
slush. Yeah. That was pretty nasty.
When I was going into the movie, Snoke was a big point for me to want to learn background because I like that
we had
stuff.
an entire episode dedicated to Snoke theory.
Yeah. Once when he got killed, I was like, oh, that's awesome. But then after the movie, I was like, but
wait,
yeah. And I was like, we didn't learn about him. That kind of stuff. I texted Andrew after, like the next day. I'm like, what the hell? Why did they kill him off? Why did they didn't answer anything? But after going through it, you're like, oh, but that's not the point. It has nothing to do.
Well, here's my theory on that. Okay, so it could be one of two things. One would be that, like what Zach was saying, they just used him to showcase how powerful Kylo was, and so he didn't need to be anything.
Yeah.
But I think, at least, well, I don't want to say I think. What I would like to see is that he was just doing the same thing that Luke did on Crate, where he kind of like force powered himself into that room, and that wasn't really him, because you can see, all right, no, Zach's giving me weird looks and I know where you're going with this. All right, so don't even start. You saw Luke kiss Leia on the forehead, and he was holding Han's dice and gave them to her, so you know that you can force project yourself into physical form where you can interact with things. And there was all kinds of speculation online about this stuff, if that's exactly what Luke was doing, or if there was some kind of a surrogate thing there or something that was some kind of object that he was manipulating to do that. But whatever Luke did, Snoke can do, and possibly to the same effect. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to bring him back. Like I said, I don't want to say I think this, because I had all kinds of crazy theories going into this movie, which are all very well documented on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and Google Play.
Plug.
Yeah, if you want to go back, and it's the Movie Marathoners, and also Eat Drink Movies on Twitter, and the Movie Marathoners on Facebook. So there's all kinds of places where you can hear me talk about all these different theories. So I don't want to say I think this is what's going to happen, but I would like to see that happen with Snoke, is that he's already done his little hologram thing, like you were saying what Palpatine did. That's sort of like a general hologram sort of thing, kind of like text messaging for the evilness. But I want to see him as that force projection, because seeing him as a hologram, you're like, wow, this is like a daunting figure. And then you see him as, Grandpa sitting on the couch in his gold robe. That was not intimidating whatsoever. So I could see him as being like, I'm going to force project myself here as this little wimpy old guy, and Kylo's going to kill me, and he's going to get really arrogant about that. That's his moment. And he just took out this like absolute, master of the Force, but not really.
So I had a thought like that watching the movie and said, no way they just killed off Snoke. What must have just happened was a hologram, that was a stand-in, a
Force
surrogate.
Projection.
Well, I didn't know what force projection was at the time.
Yeah.
So, force
Disney
projection, his way in there. And again, that Snoke just played a vehicle to now you have this intimate moment between Rey and Kylo where Kylo's like, I just killed my master, so you and I can be together and we can do this together. And then, obviously then Snoke would still be alive, and then as soon as she turns, Snoke's like, hey, I'm still here, and now we're all together.
By a vehicle, you meant it wasn't the writers making Snoke a vehicle. You think it was Snoke making himself a vehicle.
Two different situations.
Which is similar to what I was saying with, he was trying to build Kylo up and giving him this false confidence.
Yes. I'm talking about two different things, though.
All right.
Yeah. So in your situation where he force projects himself, I'm saying I had a similar thought. But I'm saying I think he really did die, and I think his whole point in this entire story was just to show how Kylo has progressed. And just to say, I really enjoyed seeing the overthrow of the Master. Like, you've never seen that before. And I thought that was
You've never seen that
cool
before.
thing.
You see that in every movie.
No.
Nah, dog. You
Star
never
Wars?
seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Name another one. And don't say Vader throwing them.
Yeah, because that's what happened.
That was the last movie, though.
But that wasn't an overthrowing the that wasn't to say you are I'm more powerful than you. I am the master now. That was just like out of love for Luke, or however you want to describe it. But
so you think just because the motives were different, then that makes it a different scene?
No.
What you're saying?
I think not to say what you're saying, but I agree with Zach completely. It's to show that Kylo is different than Vader. I mean, in the Force Awakens, it's this whole thing that Kylo's playing this mask game of trying to be Vader. I mean, Rey even says it. You're afraid that you're not as powerful as Vader, and he's playing this whole thing. And Snoke calls him out, take that ridiculous mask off. And it's now Kylo has surpassed Vader. He is now the supreme leader. Nobody in Star Wars says that no bad guy has done that yet. And
so what you're saying is that in the past, they've just sort of progressed to that point, as opposed to now they're trying to get promoted.
In Palpatine's monologue, when he talks about Plagueis,
which you've mentioned as the best monologue in the entire series.
Stand by that. And so he kind of roundabout ways talks about how he had to overthrow Plagueis. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, they talk about it.
Well,
they
you haven't
allude to it many ways.
Yeah, what I'm saying is it has been done before.
Yeah, right.
We just haven't seen it on screen, I guess, or
right
whatever.
on screen.
It's sort of like legend, if you want to say that.
It's never been like a story point.
Okay, all right, I get that then. Then yes, that's accurate. This is the first time you actually see the emotions flow. In that kind of a scene.
Another thing I thought was cool. So yeah, he does this whole thing. I kind of thought that was like a little played up, where he's like, I see, like he closes his eyes, I see you now turning your saber on your true enemy, and it's like you see it coming a mile away at that point.
But that's the other thing, my point with it being like the new Twilight, is that there's like super obvious things that are happening that I feel like they kind of push those things in there because people are not following the story. They're just like teeny boppers that are sitting there like, oh, I get that. Like, they don't understand Shakespeare and stuff. So like I think that's kind of what they're trying to focus on now, is they need to like overtell the story so that people get it, because they're not thinking about it as they're watching it.
I'm gonna take a line from George Lucas and say these movies were meant for children.
Yeah.
So,
and they still are being meant for children. However, we have 3 grown men in a small room right now that have been talking about this for almost 2 hours. So,
so how another, like I said, so how he like, I see you now turning your lightsaber and stuff. When that was all playing out and they did finally kill him, I thought, wow, that is awesome. So, kind of, I mean, they're not gonna like have a callback to Harry Potter, but like how Voldemort has like him and Harry kind of have a similar thing, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
How they can connect with each other because he, whatever they call it in Harry Potter, imprinted or something on him. Did Star Wars kind of steal some of that? Like, can Kylo and Rey have some effect on Snoke's mind? So I thought, was Rey kind of like blinding? Like he puts his hand out and he like puts her parallel to the ground. She's doing her screaming thing that like you saw in the trailer. Was she kind of like, not to say that they planned this at all, but was her like anguish and her anger, like she comes at him, and was that somehow blocking him? Was he distracted by her? And then Kylo said, this is my chance.
Well, we talked about it before, how a lot of stuff in Star Wars is about distraction. Like we were even talking before about Hoth being a distraction. It was, it very well could have been that, but did she know that she was being a distraction, or was Kylo kind of making her the distraction so that he could accomplish his task? And did he go into that throne room expecting to kill Snoke, or did he go in there thinking, oh, I'm just with my master doing this thing, bringing him his his prize?
Well, I think that showed that he's impulsive.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Like Jamie said, that he's not like, now he's the supreme leader. He's never done it before. Go back and watch the originals. This is gonna, millions of voices are gonna cry out for this one. But Vader's a dog in the original.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, he is.
Tarkin's got him on a short leash.
Everybody's got him on a short leash.
Yeah, and he's just like, he is a shell of what you
could have been.
Yeah.
Now, I had a comment on that, and I just want to say it real quick before I forget it, was the way that Vader was and the way that Kylo is with Snoke is now Rey that for the Rebels? Is she that token Force wielder? Like Vader in the originals, even like nobody takes him seriously. Like that dude, he Force chokes at the beginning because he says, you're following this silly religion or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like is he's like the token like master Force wielder there. Kylo is, and Snoke manipulates him. Is Rey going down that same path that where she's going to be like their token rock lifter to get them out of things?
So I had I wrote this down. I wanted to talk about it, and I guess now is a good time to talk about it. Like you said, a token. So you've never seen, I guess a little bit in the prequels, but in the originals especially, you've never seen just like an all-powerful Jedi or Sith. Like they talk about them in the Old Republic and like the old canon with like Revan and Darth Bane and that. Like just these extremely powerful Force wielders. And the book is Legends of Luke Skywalker. I believe it's the guy from Inferno Squad from the video game, Del Miko, has, he tells the story of, like, what he saw Luke do at, I believe it's the Battle of Jakku, too, that they talk about in the bunch in the Aftermath ones. But he tells a story, and it's like Jameyson, like, Luke Skywalker is a god. They say how he floats above the battle, and how he, using strictly the Force, pulls down a Star Destroyer to Jakku's surface, and people are shooting at him, and he has this force field around him, and it's this huge, this mythological story. And I thought that was cool hearing that. And then when Rey is talking about him in Force Awakens, and she says Luke Skywalker, I thought that was a myth. Well, this was on Jakku. I mean, it was not far-fetched to say that story spread, and word of mouth and whatever, that's the stuff that she heard. That's going to be hard to believe if you don't even know what the Force is coming from there. So, I thought that's a cool take. And I mean, it kind of just harkens back to everything we were talking about. These people, he was seen as a deity, and for her to meet him, then interesting plot point.
Yeah.
All right, how do I unpack this? So back to Snoke, I guess. Put my take on that. Snoke, to me, I mean, once again, going in, I thought one thing, coming out. I think it's amazing how they portrayed him as this. I mean, in The Force Awakens, like Josh said, he's this hologram and he's this overpowering figure. They're like, oh, what is he gonna be? Like he looks dangerous, whatever. And then when you see him, he's this old man in a robe, and he's gloating, and he's saying, I'm gonna do this. I know how everything's gonna go, and nobody can overthrow me. And he to me is everybody that is trying to vie for power in the world now, in real life. These people, however you want to take that. These people that are in power, and these dictators and whatever, I can't think of the word, but and at their core, like Snoke, his entire thing is he's terrified of Luke. And that's his sole action, and why he's trying, and like people in real life, why they want to rule everything, and they want to kill anybody who stands in their way because they're terrified. It all comes from, they're petulant, pathetic, just little children that are crying out and terrified that they won't have the power to. And it's amazing how they portray that, where he's gloating, whatever, and he's saying to Kylo, I'm I see everything that's going to happen. I don't think that it's necessarily Kylo is this super. Obviously, he's insanely powerful, but I think it was an amazing thing to show how that's kind of the only way you were able to defeat Snoke, because he was kind of showing like he could just pick Rey up and throw her around the room.
You have to use his,
and he does it with
against
Hux.
him.
Yeah,
In the beginning.
Oh yeah,
and a hologram.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's why I feel like he really did force project himself, because as a hologram, he could do that to Hux, and
see,
he's just powerful, man. I can't see him just turning into Snoke sushi like that, and he's got to be something more.
I see. With that, I would not like if he was. Originally, I'd be like, no, he's got to last. But now I think it wouldn't be good if he came back or he was force projected, because it, like Zach said, it progresses Kylo's story, and now Kylo is the bad guy. We've never seen that before.
Who's he fighting though? I mean, he kind of had that separation with Rey,
right?
But like, I feel like Kylo needs that. He's similar to Vader, where he was like the lapdog kind of character. I feel like he always needs that though. He needs that other dark side figure to be struggling against, unless it's going to be himself now, because he's very introspective throughout the last couple movies.
So what I liked about this one in particular, and I've said this, I probably even said this the night that we left, I thought it was really cool how they showed him going, I mean, hats off to Adam Driver. They showed him go through a whirlwind of emotions, and it's like every time they show, like, is he gonna blow up Leia? I'm like, great, this is gonna be the moment, and he's gonna like force time Rey, and he's gonna be like, yeah, you know what, you're right, I'm gonna be on your side now. I couldn't kill my mom, so you're right. Like, I'm not into this dark side stuff anymore. And then he doesn't, and then Leia gets blown out, and I got all sorts of problem with that. But then there's like multiple times in the movie where you think, okay, like, this is it, like, this is the time, everybody saw this coming, he's gonna flip sides, you know, he killed Han, he feels regret for it, he's just gonna flip back and forth. And then walking out of the movie, and especially now, it's like every time that he showed his, you know, weakness that Snoke said that he had, look back at it, like, that was, yeah, he was portraying it as a weakness, but I think he was letting on to that more so than it actually affected him, just to manipulate from his side.
He's showing weakness to
right,
kind of draw people in.
Exactly.
And that's kind of
from a certain point of view
with Sith, is that they are very emotional and irrational at times, you could say. So maybe he's playing on that knowledge that people know that the Sith is like that, and they, you know, I mean, that is a way to draw people in, is vulnerability.
Like that throne room scene, I think, is the best flip, like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde flip that he has when he's talking to Rey, and he's like, "You and I can do this together."
She's all like, "Nah."
Yeah, and she said no, and he's all like, snaps.
"That's it." Yep.
Yeah, and when he goes, no, you're still holding on. Love that.
Yeah. Adam Driver, I think, was the saving grace in this movie for me. I think his character arc that peaked in this movie was spectacularly portrayed. Yeah. And like, I didn't have a ton of faith in him from the get-go when they relaunched all the movies and stuff, but I really think that this saved that for me.
Really?
Like, this movie was like, but his performance, and Kylo still is my favorite new character of in the entire franchise at this point. He's my favorite new character since the relaunch, but I think that Adam Driver in this movie alone just showcased his range, and that's really important for Star Wars, but also for like for the franchise in general. It's really important to have a character like that can also be portrayed well, because like, you can read Kylo's story or like, you know, see it in comics or whatever, and it's not going to be the same. Adam Driver really portrayed it well, and emotionally I think he did great. He made it a real character, and taking off the mask too is just, it's great.
All right.
He's good.
I just want to talk about that. So he took off the mask, right? I was gonna say which Kylo Ren do you like better, with or without the mask? Like aesthetically, not saying, oh, when he takes the mask off, he's whiny and blah blah. Just like aesthetically, like costume wise, is the mask better or
the mask?
The mask with the hood, just
the mask with the frayed hood, like the when he first is introduced in the first movie. I just love that.
Yeah,
he's got like that tattered hood on with the mask and his like freaky voice and stuff. It's just so good.
But
yeah, when you first see him in Force Awakens and he's got all that stuff, now looking back on it, it just seems like he's been on this journey to find Luke and Lor Santeca and like all this. He's been doing this for a long time,
and
it's finally paying off too.
And in Force Awakens, rewatching it, you really start to see that Snoke is just trying to like not let anybody else find Luke. Whatever, like find him or destroy the droid. Don't let anybody find him.
Yeah,
he just can't come back.
That was a weird thing in Force Awakens when it was like, just destroy the droid. Like, well, then no one's gonna find him. Like, don't you want to find him? Like, you want to find him and kill him, right?
He's terrified.
Isn't that your thing?
Yeah.
But he doesn't. I think he, like you were saying, he's terrified. He just wants to know where he is so he can avoid him.
And exactly. And Kylo in The Force Awakens, his whole mission is, Snoke wants this, but I want that I want the map.
And Hux calls him out on that too.
Yeah.
In Force Awakens, he calls him out.
In front of Snoke, yeah.
He's like, don't let your personal things get into this.
Yeah. He does that in the ATM-6 too.
Yeah.
When he's standing there. Yeah. And he's like, fire everything on him. And he says something again along the lines.
Something like he's just a man or whatever. Yeah.
And to go back to if he was manipulating everybody along the way, I think he was conflicted, and I think Luke at the end says, if you strike me down in hate, I will haunt you like your father. Yeah. And he's always conflicted, but to go back, once again, I'm the voice of this, the theme of the movie of, Kylo, he even says it throughout the entire movie, is burn down everything from the past, destroy it if you have to move forward. And he hates Luke. In The Force Awakens, and The Last Jedi, in The Force Awakens, it's said by Leia that I thought if I let Luke train him, it would help him. Right. And then in The Last Jedi, Luke's saying how it was hard for Leia to let him come and be trained because he was becoming powerful in the Force, and he's young and he doesn't know what to do with it, and Leia, being the mom, doesn't know. And he says Han was Han about it, so Han's like, take the kid. Do whatever.
Because Han doesn't believe in the Force. Like, he doesn't fully, he's seen it be used so many times, but he still is like, whatever, it's just some hokey religion. And
with Kylo being like twisted and turned, which I think is amazing, because he's not a one path where he's like, I know what's, he's constant. That's just how people are in general. You don't have the same thought. That's from
the
hour to hour.
Kind of the teeny bopper thing with him is that he's kind of fly off the handle or off the cuff, I guess you would say.
And it's like his the theme of this is legends and just father figures. Like Luke let him down. Snoke, he thought Snoke was going to be this thing to help him. Snoke, throughout this entire movie and Force Awakens, has belittled him, has let him down, has beat him down, and he had enough. Yeah. He, like, when he killed him, it's, I want control. He can't take another person just destroying him over and over and making him feel like he's not this important thing. And it's the same thing, like, his vulnerability when he makes a decision to ignite the lightsaber. And he looks down at Ben at the time, and he knows he made a mistake, and he knows that, but it's too late. And Kylo, it's going through the movie where Rey sees that Luke made a mistake, and it's not who she thought he was. Ben realized that, and he goes, "This is not who he's trying to kill me."
Yeah.
But instead of learning from that and going and trying to grow from that and go, well, people make mistakes, he's just going anger. And yeah, Luke screwed up, but it's been Ben's decision the entire rest of the time.
So that was one of my favorite story points. Was they flash back to that 3 times?
Yeah.
You get Luke or you get Kylo's side of it, and he says like he was trying to kill me. He was afraid I was gonna be more powerful than him. And then you get Luke's side saying I thought that he was gonna turn away and he was gonna be the one that would bring this all down. And in a moment of weakness, I did this. And then you kind of see it again. And
really
it's kind of like a mix between the two.
Yeah.
And
they were both sort of at fault with everything.
But that's what I think is cool about Luke in this one is I wouldn't put that past him to have like that fleeting second of jealousy, maybe would be a good way to say it. Because you think in Return of the Jedi, like that's how he initially defeats Vader. Like the Emperor says, like let yourself like defeat him like with anger, let the hate flow through you is the term. Yeah, right. So it's like it's not that far out to have like obviously he's not necessarily trained, but he's learned both sides of the Force. So
well, I think
to
also
have
with
anger, hate kind of like leak into him a little bit easier than some of the other guys. Yeah.
With him being in a rough spot, with that being his nephew too, and seeing him turning to the way that he saw his father go, I think that might have set him off a little bit as well. And we already know that Luke is a little flighty. You know, he has those moments of weakness more often than we've seen a lot of the other characters have. And it's funny because you see that in Kylo as well. But I could see Luke saying, you know what, this is my nephew, I'm more responsible for him than anyone else. But to have that moment where you think you're going to kill him, it pushing it a little too far.
Well, what you see in the original trilogy, Luke doesn't finish his training and he runs out because my friends are in danger. I have to help them. Then when he's fighting Vader, it's completely in anger. And then in Return of the Jedi, his whole thing is passive. He doesn't want to fight. He even says to the Emperor, I'm not going to fight my father. Yeah. And then he goes to kill the Emperor, but Vader counteracts. And they fight, and then Luke doesn't want to fight again. And the only thing that gets Luke back in the fight is when he gets threatened that Vader says, I'll turn Leia to the dark side, and threatens him, or probably kill her. And that makes him fight again. So when he's saying that he sees this darkness in Luke, and when he goes in that room and he's sensing, and you hear the cries and the yells in the background, he's seeing just millions of people just getting murdered, just genocide all over the galaxy, and just seeing what is the potential of this, and in a state of being nervous and not wanting it. Once again, it's going back to the where he just makes a sudden thought and he doesn't do it, but it's too late. And he goes back to the Luke of, okay, I'm not going to do this, but it might have been the best thing to do, but he doesn't do it.
You know what this makes me think of is the hypothetical, like if you knew everything that Hitler would become as a adult, would you kill him as a baby?
Yeah.
Could you kill a baby? You know, this is the same situation, except that baby is also your nephew.
Yeah.
And I think in that scene, it's like, you're a Jedi Master. If you wanted to kill somebody in your sleep, the first thing you would do is light up your lightsaber and go for a full, like, swing through him. Really, you couldn't, like, give him a little force choke or, like, that we saw. You know, put like the right about the emitter right next to him and ignite it, so it just immediately right into it. Like, there's other ways to quickly kill somebody. I think he had a lot of reservations. Yeah. Even when he was trying to do it before he even thought, is this the right thing to do? He already like had that subconscious that he wasn't going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing.
Maybe he went into it not expecting to do it, but then in the heat of the moment thought, hey, this is the right thing to do.
Well, in the flashback, does it show him reading his mind and like kind of the future or something?
Yeah, I think so. Well, it shows him kind of like hearing stuff, like not really visualizing anything, but
Well, he even
feeling
shows it when he's ready to burn down the tree, and he's like, "I'm gonna do it," and he hesitates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
he doesn't know what exactly, like, he wants to do it, but he's held back by.
Mm-hmm.
It's
He's too emotional for a Jedi, and but like we were saying in past episodes, I mean, that's kind of the Jedi code is to not be emotional, but all of them really are.
mm-hmm.
But even Luke's so much, I mean, he's so much more emotional than most Jedi, and it's maybe because he was kind of brought into it as a teenager, where he was already emotional to begin with.
And his dad's the
real code of the Jedi is bring in people who want answers, don't give them that answer until they turn to the dark side.
Yeah, right. And then they get all the answers they want.
Or the dark side is
try
trying to
to
give those
them.
answers, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Luke is like in the prequels, the Jedi were not exactly passive, but they had no problem with being offensive or anything.
Right, yeah.
Luke is his whole ideology is just, I don't want to use this to overpower anything. He doesn't want to fight Vader.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes back into this. He doesn't want the possibility of everything getting taken away from him, like with Vader. Like, his sister can die or get turned to the dark side. Ben does this. His sister can die. His friends can die.
Yeah.
Millions of people in the galaxy are going to get murdered because of this kid. And then he fails, and then he goes into hiding.
And then it all happens exactly as he had figured it would.
Yeah, which is so interesting because in the prequels, that happens with Anakin.
Yeah.
He has the and that's the thing with the Force vision is like, it might come true, but it's just, but if you act on it, it probably will come true because of your actions.
Well, it's the whole thing. Like, can you actually change the future, or will it happen either way?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, who knows if he would have killed Kylo, it might have been one of the other, Knights of Ren step up and become the new Kylo. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that could happen. So you don't know if you're actually changing the future or if you're just killing your nephew. I guess that's where it comes in.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's great for Kylo's character because it shows that he everything gets taken away from him, because obviously when he's young he's got this force. He doesn't, I mean, it's the same with what Rey said, like, I've had this, it awoke in me and I don't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And Leia doesn't want to ship him away, and I'm sure being a little kid he's like, I don't want to, like, you're gonna let me go. And so, I mean, he even says in the movie how, like, what does he say? Like, Rey asks him, why did you kill Han? And he goes, or why did you hate him or whatever? And he goes, I didn't hate him. It's just, it has to do with my past.
Yeah.
This is not who I want to be.
Kill it if you have to.
Yeah. And he's just trying to run from everything that failed to him. Like, that was the light side. My mom let me go with my uncle. My uncle tried to kill me.
Yeah.
Like, I want
he's
nothing.
Just be pissed at the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think we'd be doing ourselves and our fans a huge disservice if we didn't talk about the absolute lack of porg necessity in this movie. For like a year, we've been porging out on social media, and then we get to the movie and they're just completely useless creatures that mean nothing to any of it. Now, I had speculated over and over again in these podcasts that this was a food source for Luke, and we actually see Chewie frying up a porg on the fire, and I was so excited to see that because I'm like, see, you can eat porgs, and then he doesn't eat it.
Do you think he's eaten some before that?
He must have eaten. I mean,
he knew what he was doing.
What else is he eating? All right, so you have the caretakers there, which are just these super freaky, like, dark crystal labyrinth type,
nun-looking
you
things.
Like Jim Henson type characters. I mean, are they doing the cooking? Because it looks like they're just knocking dust off of rugs and stuff most of the time.
Hanging out.
Well, they're their caretaker. Like, they're the upkeep of the island. That's why they don't like Rey, because she's screwing everything up.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think cooking. I think that's just
you don't think cooking is the
well, they don't like
what they do.
I don't think they like that Luke and Rey are there.
Right.
No, yeah, that's true. I find that they're probably kind of annoyed with Luke being there, kind of like holding up in their realm, because that's not what they're supposed to be taking care of.
Well, and ever since they got there, they have to now rebuild stuff.
Yeah.
That wasn't a huge issue before.
Yeah, you see them like putting back together walls and stuff when Rey blows stuff
Would you
up.
see Luke's doors at X-Wing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
great.
such a cool little Easter egg there too. And because you see his X-Wing that he obviously sunk out in the water, but then to see like the doors are part of that, that was really cool too.
I didn't really care for porgs. I mean, Andrew was a big porg supporter.
Team porg, I believe, is how he put it.
I didn't really care. I just thought, I really hope that they don't try to like put this in every aspect of the film and make like a mockery of.
I really
porgs.
felt like they were gonna be the new Ewoks.
Yeah, right.
I really thought they would, and I think the thing that showed that for me was in the trailer when Chewie is flying the Falcon and he's like rah, and then the porg comes up and he's like rah. I think that kind of showed, because you see how Chewie works with the Ewoks in Jedi, and I think that I was just so disappointed that they were nothing at all. I mean, they were basically just pigeons, and I wanted them to be at least something. And why didn't Chewie just eat that one? It's already dead. It's not like it can get deader. Like, just eat the thing.
No, I disagree. I mean, I could care less.
Yeah, going into it, I thought they were going to be nothing. I thought they were just going to be like a cute little addition. Yeah, exactly. But
Penguin
like
squirrel.
you said, like a pigeon. Well, that island actually has puffins. Like that's, and I think that was just what they.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's what they did.
Maybe instead of like showing the puffins, they just kind of animated over the top of each puffin that was already in the shot. That might have been actually what that was.
Put a little motion capture dots on the
motion
puffins.
capture all the puffins. I want to see if that's what they did.
Going from that, I'm just thinking, let's get into Rey's cave scene.
Yeah, the dark side of ahk-to. Do you think that Luke knew? I mean, he obviously knew that existed. Do you think he'd ever been in there?
Do you think Yoda ever went in the cave, the dark side cave in Dagobah?
Yeah, I think he did.
I don't see why he wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So do you think Luke went in there?
Probably.
I don't know, because Rey didn't go in there. She got pulled in there.
Or Luke didn't need to.
So do you think that it's like invite only kind of thing? Like maybe it never asked Luke to come in?
Yeah. I think he went in.
Maybe he did.
I think he went in because that's kind of, in my eyes, what he was there doing, like studying light and dark. Like, that, darkness rises, light comes to meet it, or whatever the Snoke thing is. So he mentions that ahk-to is a big like force entity, a force source.
Jedi.
Yeah, it's the first Jedi plays. So it's obviously a strong light side presence. And that was a tree called a Umadi or whatever, it starts with a U. But like that tree is there, and then this like weird dark cave. So they balance each other out. So I think in any good learning, he would have experienced the light side, and he would have studied the dark side too. So I think he would have gone in there,
and just challenged to see what
happens. Yeah.
Do you think he might have seen the same thing that Rey saw, or was that just for her? Is it
that was just for her?
Is it kind of like I brought up the labyrinth before? Is it sort of like everyone that goes in there has a unique experience, or is everybody seeing the funhouse mirrors?
I think it's because Luke goes into. Does he go to a tree in Dagobah? Just
in the hole
in Dagobah.
Yeah, he goes in the.
When he goes in there, it's all presented by what he's seeking, and I think that's the whole basis. That it's what are you searching?
Fear.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when Vader comes out, and then he chops off Vader's head, the mask explodes, and he sees himself. His biggest fear is becoming Vader.
Yeah. In Rey, I love that scene because it was like when she duplicates, when she's snapping and everything's repeating, but it's not happening at the same time.
I like the delay. Yeah.
To me, that suggests that it's telling her, it's the idea that no matter what your action is, it's always coming back to you. Like, whatever you decide, it's your decision. It's not, you can't put it on to these other things. And when she wants to know who her parents are, it doesn't matter. She is the point.
That's kind of how I read into it too. Like especially when she did that snapping thing and she turns around and blah blah. I was like, okay, so there's an infinite number of Reys, right? The multiverse. There's infinite things that she could be doing, and I saw it almost like a spectrum. Like, you see, there was the one side, the mirrors were lighter than the other, like a visual representation of light and dark side. There's an infinite, place on that spectrum that she could fall, and that she snaps, and they all snap. It's like you said. So she could fall anywhere on that spectrum, and it's like the story doesn't have a past and it doesn't have a future. This is her right now, and wherever she goes, this is where it's going to go.
Yeah, it's like Luke. I mean, it's brought up when Yoda shows up and he tells Luke, still looking at the horizon and looking at where
Farm boy Luke.
Farm boy Luke doing it up.
Like, you're looking at where you're not. You are here. What are you going to do now? It doesn't matter about everything else. You made a mistake in the past. What are you going to do about that now? You can't just live in your mistakes. Grow. You have to learn. What are you going to do about that mistake? Yeah, the mistake's not going to go away, but you can learn from it. You can make another decision.
Now, that whole, getting back to Farm Boy Luke and being where you are and stuff, how cool is that at the end of the movie when he becomes one with the Force, when he's doing his freaky Mark Hamill, crisscross applesauce sitting
floating,
but then you see the two suns come up,
and you have the Force theme.
So goosebumpy,
and everything.
I was like almost shaking at that point. I was so excited to see that, because you feel so much for Luke. I mean, he's the guy, he's the guy you grew up with.
It just runs you through the whole story.
Yeah, that's what it is. In your mind, it's almost like seeing your life flash before your eyes, but you're seeing Luke's life flash before your eyes, and you're going back to Tatooine, and you're there with him in that. I think that's what kind of sucked you into that moment when he's evaporating, is that you're looking back on his entire life as he's looking back on his entire life.
And he's also looking at the horizon this time as a good way of, the rebels are saved. Now the future generation can...
In a hopeful way.
Yeah, in a hopeful way,
which
exactly.
It's all about hope.
Yeah.
So that's really what it is. And he's looking at everything completely differently now. And I think it's because of Rey that he's looking at this. And I think like Jamie was saying, at one point when Rey shows up and hands him the saber, you're pretty confident that he's checking out at that point. But I think it was because of Rey now that he sees things from a different perspective and sees the importance of his role in everything.
Yeah.
And now he's like, okay, cool. And it's exactly how Obi-Wan was. He saw his role in all this, and he saw his place, and he saw that his time was finished and his tasks were all completed. It's cool. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And maybe he wasn't like that at the beginning of the movie. He wasn't. He was ready to go personally,
but she showed up.
Emotionally, he wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
He wasn't prepared enough to actually become one with the Force.
Well, I think until she leaves, he's trying to convince himself over and over again that he made the right choice. Because once again, he's living in the past and what Kylo's doing, but not in a genocidal way of just, did I make the right decision? Agree with me. Because when he tells Rey, I'm going to teach you 3 lessons. And the one lesson is, I'm going to teach you how the Jedi have failed and how they're not the right path. And in doing so, he's trying to convince himself that They are terrible.
Yeah.
And
that he went wrong.
Yeah, and that why I'm here is a good reason, and like agree with me, so he feels good about that. And like
he wants somebody to agree with him because the caretakers obviously don't.
Yeah, right. And that ending scene is just oh my
powerful.
God.
It really is powerful. I mean, even if you didn't like the movie, I feel like that is something that you like. And I personally, I've read a lot of stuff and I've talked to a lot of people that did not like the treatment of Luke in this movie. And Mark Hamill himself did not particularly care for it.
Which he's retracted.
Yeah, but still, I mean, you can't take that away. And I loved it. I love the way they handled Luke. Luke has been a part of me growing up, and I like the way that they handled him in this movie. I did not particularly care for the Marvel style comic that they made him become, but I loved that he turned away and then saw how important he actually was. So I feel like he needed to know that. Mm-hmm. He needed to know what he set off in the galaxy and what he set off in the Force by being himself and being who he is and doing the things that he did. He needed to know his importance in this story. And I love that he found that and then he was letting go. Because Luke always held on to so much stuff and he needed to let go of a lot of that. And I think that when he was on ahk-to, he was thinking he was letting go by running away. But he never actually...
He was still holding on to it because he was running away.
He had it there still, and he needed Rey to help him to get rid of all this baggage so that he could then lighten his load and finish his story.
So what did you mean by the Marvel take on him?
The what we were talking about before with the comedy and stuff like that, how they made him into sort of a like silly character almost. At the beginning where he's throwing the lightsaber over his face, and he like slams the door on Rey and stuff, and that's what I meant by that. The Marvel style comedy.
What's amazing about the end is exactly what he said in the beginning, where he says to Rey, "Do you think I'm going to come back with a laser sword?"
Yeah,
and
I
just
love that he
stand
said
in front
sword.
of the First Order and take them on, and he does.
He does,
and it's the most badass way ever.
Yeah, that was another big part with him is that he finally realized that he really is a hero. Yeah. Because he never saw himself as a hero. He saw himself as a pawn in this game and he was just playing along. But he finally sees himself as a true hero, which he has been over and over and over, but he never admitted that he was.
And he is a hero, but he's also... like the rest of the movie, he's a person making a choice that to the rest of the galaxy becomes a heroic act that they need because they need hope again. They need faith that they can take on the First Order, and he restores that because of just a simple act that he comes around it because of Rey. So good. Luke's entire arc in this movie is Luke and Rey's arc is my favorite in this movie. Yeah. Like Kylo, I mean, you can't really, none's above.
I mean, Kylo is super linear, I guess you would say, with his arc, where he's just always climbing. Whereas, with Rey and Luke, it's real bumpy.
With like Rey, when she shows up and when he's showing her when he goes out to the rock cliff, that like boulder that he levitates on, and she's giving him the speech that like Kylo is really strong in the dark side and your sister needs you back, and she's giving this like monologue that she's like practiced or just thinks that just saying these things will get him back, and it doesn't, and he failed her in a sense because she thought he was going to be this guy that's like, oh, I'll just go give him the lightsaber and we'll come back. And over again. And to talk about green milk, when she shows up and he's going through his daily routine and everything is just thrown in her face of like, this is what you want? I'm not a legend. I'm just some dude that's... And when he drinks the green milk and he just gives her the grin, like, yeah, this is what it is.
This is what I'm doing right now.
That's one thing I thought that was funny, like, later on, when she asked him to go with her, and she's like, I've seen your daily routine.
Yeah, you got time. Don't have to do this.
Like, there was parts of, like, the comedy that I thought was funny and that fit with the characters.
Well, because that kind of stuff, when she says that, I've seen what you do or whatever, that was more Star Wars comedy, where it was like situational and actually funny, whereas some of the other stuff is just that hokey, corny garbage that's just jammed in there to break a tense scene.
Yeah,
but not necessarily during a tense scene. It's just in there.
Like, I obviously don't love everything about this movie. I just love the
You can't love or hate everything about
like with there is the one thing when he tells her to get up on the rock and reach out to the Force, and she reaches out and he's messing with her.
Yeah.
And then when she realizes,
that was annoying. Yeah, I didn't like that
thing. But the one thing that got me was when she was like, "Oh, like," I'm like, that's so like modern. Yeah, like, oh, like, you mean do this?
Modern is the perfect way to put that. Yeah, the modern comedy, and I think we just relate it to Marvel because of all the silly Marvel superhero movies that are just goofy, and they're just silly. They're kind of like the Iron Man and all those, or Spider-Man,
Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron.
I think it was just the worst with that.
It was terrible.
Just real goofy.
None of it fit.
Yeah,
none of it.
And that was the thing with Rey when she was, and she realized that he's messing with her. Just the fact that he was messing with her was sort of that kind of comedy. Where it's like, do you really need to do that? I don't see that, but I see that it sort of set it up also that he just doesn't care and he's making a joke about it. But I think we could have shown that in a more serious way.
And it's kind of like Yoda teasing Luke.
Yeah, that's what Yoda did to him.
Right.
So maybe that's how he feels is the best way to teach it.
Maybe.
He's like, oh, you came here to do this. You took me out of trying to leave this world and whatever, and now you're wasting my time. Like, I'm asking you to do that. You want this so bad. Reach out to the Fort, and she reaches out, and he's like, all right, this is what I'm dealing with. Everything on ahk-to was amazing. I loved it. I mean, obviously there's things here and there, like humor or whatever, but just the story points and the arc of it, incredible.
I love when Luke just wrecked the house. Just ripped the roof off. I mean, that was some cool Luke.
I think that was practical effect too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It looked like it. It didn't look fake. It didn't look like a CGI kind of thing. And he just rolls in. He's like, "Nope, done with this. You're out." I mean, he's like basically just walked in on his, niece, if you want to call her.
Yeah.
with the
boy in her
guy,
room.
And he's like, "Nope, tearing the place down. We're done."
How did you feel about her Force connections with Kylo?
I thought that was super cool, but then finding out later that it was Snoke pushing them together,
I think that made it even better for me.
Yeah.
I think it's two things. I think it's Snoke bridged the gap.
Yeah.
But once it was there, it was
already established.
It's already established.
Yeah, I agree. Because we see him connect later on.
Yeah.
Even after Snoke is allegedly dead, which I don't think he really is. I
think
he is.
Lucasfilm,
be dead.
Please be dead.
Please be dead.
Just
hook him up. Get him. Force projection, man. Hashtag. And I think that, that whole thing where it was like he established the connection there and then they just sort of maintained it. Yeah. Now they're permanently connected.
Yeah.
Like Luke and Leia. And they're going to be...
like Harry Potter and Voldemort.
Mm-hmm. In a sense.
We don't say that name.
From a certain point of view.
Yeah, we need to have a whole podcast on how I don't like the Harry Potter movies or books or anything about Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah. It's my brother. I learn something every day.
Let's talk.
I'm not super involved, but I like the movies starting at 4. And then everything after that I like. Yeah. Everything before that I don't care for.
I agree with that.
But since we're on The Last Jedi.
Yeah. So let's finish up here with what was your favorite moment in The Last Jedi?
What was yours?
My favorite was Luke ending it all. becoming one with the Force. That was my goosebump moment. That's why I gotta say that. I mean, there were a lot of cool moments throughout, but that was the one where I really, and I think it was just because that was a character that I grew up with that I saw finally finish his story. But that was it. When I saw the two sons, it was over for me.
And the Force thing.
I'm fairly certain that there was one large manly tear that rolled down and stuck into my beard. That was it for me. That was my moment. Yeah.
So that was definitely a close second to, I brought it up several times, the throne room scene. And I think what made that so important to me was it finally showed a better direction in the Kylo story arc. It just solidified him as the supreme bad guy, like, that I wanted. I was okay with maybe Luke being this, like, gray Jedi symbol, but then there was a lot of people talking about, like, Kylo was gonna flip sides and maybe Rey was gonna flip sides, and I was like, I don't want that. I just want just a real bad guy. Like, I understand, the gray situation, that's real life, but I don't want real life. I want Star Wars. Give me a bad guy.
Yeah, right.
Man, I don't know. It's a three-way tie with every main character making their final decision of who are they going to be between Kylo, Rey, and Luke. But I think it's got to be Luke, but entwined with Rey, where at the end where he goes, the rebellion has been reborn, you have failed, and I will not be the last Jedi. And it shows Rey lifting the rocks. That together it just brings Star Wars back to it's amazing. They're just back together.
Reopens it.
But honorable mention, Kylo just making his final decision. Like, this is who I am. And him not even necessarily, like, evil. Like, he wants to be bad. Like, it's not even like, oh, he's just bad. No, he wants to be. He's running from the light. He doesn't want to be a part of the light.
That's what I love. It's a definitive decision of his. It's not like,
finally.
It's not another impulse thing. It's this is what I want, and
I didn't know I wanted it. Like, obviously going in, I think, oh, Snoke's gonna be the bad guy, but I love that they take him out in the second one because we never had that, and now the third one's just open to, oh man, what's gonna happen now?
Complete development.
And now Kylo's the bad guy. See where it goes. I'm so pumped.
Yeah, well, we'll see in a couple of years. Unfortunately, we got a couple of years coming into it. But
what do you feel about Solo?
Not psyched about it. I mean, we're obviously gonna go.
We'll watch
midnight premiere like we always do, but not super pumped about the story.
It's like any of these spin-offs that they're doing where it's characters that we already know or stories that we already know. I like the saga movies until they do something like Rian Johnson's trilogy where it's something completely different.
I think the problem was with the spin-offs, we were spoiled with Rogue One. Just such a phenomenal movie.
But I think with Rogue One, what made it so great is it had a start and it had an end point. Fill in the blank in the coolest way you can.
Yeah.
I think that's why it was so good.
Yeah. I can't see Solo doing that.
Yeah.
I can't see that being... it's a Ron Howard movie. I don't know. He's Ron Howard. Is he a Star Wars director? They usually find some no-name to do it outside of J.J. Abrams. But I'm not really... I can't get pumped about it. I'm sure I will be closer to May.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to get really excited to go see it and talk about it, and we'll probably have 6 or 7 podcasts devoted to it leading up to that. But I don't know. I'm not, at this point right now, December 2017, not totally psyched.
Yeah.
So we have, they have Solo coming out May next of 2018. What other anthologies would you like to see?
I've mentioned
not would you like to see. I get
multiple times.
Next one you want?
I want to see Old Republic, but
yes.
I think if we're doing like background stories, I would have liked to see Lando, but I know that that's coming with Solo. Hopefully that you actually see some background story on him. I want to see where he got the cape from, because I feel like
Cape Gate.
his cape is awesome. I would like to see that. I would maybe like to see a droid movie.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why.
Roger.
I want to see.
Gonk droids.
No, I want to see a movie about like Star Wars tech, because we don't really see a lot of where that stuff comes from or like how it was developed. We just know it's like old stuff. But I want to see how, like, who's developing this technology, and maybe it's just some really lame story behind it. But I'd like to see something like that.
I'd maybe see a documentary about that.
That's kind of what it would be like.
That would be so interesting, just documentary style.
Yeah. Like just the development of
a droid.
Not
so
even technically droids. I just use that as an example. But like all the tech that's used in Star Wars, I'd like to see. You know, the ships and stuff.
You'll probably... It's probably all books.
Yeah, I doubt they're going to make a movie about that, but I'd watch it.
I'm still holding to the Rambo version, or Rambo style. Jedi on a planet, and his battalion of clone troopers turned on him during the Clone Wars, and he's just trying to survive. And it's just Rambo, him in...
They just call it Order 66.
Yeah, something like that. And he's just trying to survive.
Well, we talked about this. Like, how cool would the prequels be? Forget Phantom Menace. You have the prequels start at Clone Wars. You just, like, right in the mix in the Clone Wars. And then Revenge is Revenge. And then you have a third one where you have Vader chasing around the last couple Jedi that survived.
That's in the Vader comic books.
Yeah, but make a movie of it.
Well, that's the thing, too, is if we're going with the comic book stuff, I would love to see the Mace Windu movie. Because that comic book is so rich in, like, beautiful content and amazing story. And you see Mace as this, like, psychotic youth Jedi where he's just got, like, so much teenage angst and aggression. I would love to see that played out. And I want to see Samuel L. Jackson.
Is John Travolta in that?
In the comic book? I would love to see that story if we're gonna go that route. But like any of those comic books, they could turn into a story. I mean, they're really, really well written.
My thing about stuff, the spin-offs, I do not want them to keep going back to worlds we've already lived in.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, like here and there, sure, but when it's one after another, this is where we're.
If we're just going to do the background of every character,
right?
Like, what's the point?
Like Old Republic or another part of the universe that's going on with Jedi.
Ryan Johnson's new trilogy. He said it's going to be stuff we've never seen before, characters we don't know, worlds we don't know. Perfect. Thank you.
I do hope that there's lightsabers in it though.
There's got to be lightsabers.
Lightsabers or laser swords?
You know what? I have a feeling that it's going to be the exact same era, but a different part of the galaxy, where other stuff is going on, where maybe we're not connected to, if they do this era, we're not connected to the First Order, last era, we're not connected to the Empire. I'd like to see that kind of thing. That would be really cool, where there still would be lightsabers and, you know, certain technology that's there. Maybe that's the one where they bring up the tech. I don't know.
Would you... I don't think I would like a total rehashed Old Republic just in a movie form, because I played the game. I've seen that. But just something like 1,000 years, 2,000 years before the prequels kind of thing. Just like, what was it like? Even if they had the lightsabers where they had like the battery pack attached, like that they carried on the hip with the cord.
Well, that's what I mean about the
evolution
stuff,
of a lightsaber.
The development of the tech, how it became so refined, the lightsaber, if you want to start with that, how it became so refined and dignified weapon.
You have to show a lightsaber.
It definitely started out as more clunky.
I'd like to also see at some point in this, either anthology or in one of the saga films, turning a kyber crystal, making the kyber crystal bleed.
Yeah,
because they show that in the Vader. You said you read the Vader comic. Yeah, they show how he does that. I think that would be cool to see on screen.
Yeah, I would really like to see that too, because it's the, you know, you kill the Jedi and take the kyber crystal out of their lightsaber, and they're dying life is what makes it bleed, and that's why they're all red. It's such a cool concept that we just all of a sudden are introduced to, and it just sort of is like a fleeting pass, but it'd be so cool to actually see that physically happen.
See, I hope what's going on with this revamp of Star Wars with Disney is, The Force Awakens, I mean, rewatching it, it's not like the originals. But at first glance, you're like, oh, it's the same. It's trying to get everybody reintroduced and faith put back into the franchise. Yeah. And then The Last Jedi is very different, and it's going in a new path. I hope what they're doing is just like, they're just trying to restore faith in people that, like, this is something that's good again, and then they'll start going weird.
It's the reintroduction to the new generation that, like, my kids know Star Wars, like, they know legitimate Star Wars, but maybe not all children are as fortunate to have that experience. But even with my daughter knowing everything, like, she dressed up as Leia for Halloween, but she loves Rey. Like, Rey's the character that she connects with because it's meant to be that. Like, she's meant to be the next generation character that the young girls connect with, just like the girls in the late 70s, early 80s connected with Leia. She's meant to be that. So to see the next generation of Star Wars viewers connect more with Rey than they do with Leia, it's totally understandable, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to recreate those characters that were so great for 40 years.
Yeah. And I hope they're willing to... I mean, Canto Bight's a great thing of, like, they're willing to go prequelish, weirdish. So I hope they're able to, like, just go down weird paths.
Get
just
freaky with it.
Just interesting things that... I mean, Lucas might have done it anyways, but...
I mean, that's probably why Rian Johnson, we speculated a million ways over why he got the new trilogy, but it's probably because of that, because he's willing to get freaky with it.
Yeah.
And he's willing to make it weird, and it has to be weird. You know, it's sci-fi or fantasy or whatever you want to call it. It's got to be weird.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gotta keep growing and just not stick to, like, the path that everything's been going down. I mean, obviously, The Last Jedi is the one thing that it's too different, whatever. But just keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Put new blood into it.
Yeah, probably my biggest fear with that, it ends up like Walking Dead. There's no... You could make Star Wars stuff forever. You know, you could.
1,000 years.
I don't want them to.
See, I would have no problem with it. But
saga stuff, I guess I should say.
Like, the trilogy idea is pretty good, where it's like you can do a trilogy, maybe 2 trilogies where it's one story, and then it's done. Then move on to the next trilogy, and like, that's fine, because then you just have endless collections of different stories in the Star Wars world.
Yeah, and I think I'm more on board with giving the entire trilogy to a writing directing team as opposed to splitting them up like they did with this one. Like, J.J. Abrams gets 2, Rian Johnson gets the middle one. Like, that. Yeah. There's going to be some continuity in that, but you're not seeing one person's vision like we did with the original and the prequels.
I meant to say something about this before, so I think that was really great on JJ and that writing team to have their script set, and they proposed that this they're calling it Black Diamond. They proposed it the day before Last Jedi was even released. So they didn't have everybody's loves and hates and complaints and whatever else input on their writing. Like, that was done. They submitted their draft.
It's not going to be one of those crowdsource sequels where you're going to be playing into it. But they did do that a little bit. I mean, that's what Rian Johnson took into account. Like, we were talking about the Force Ghost Yoda. He took into account that people didn't like the CGI version. They wanted the real, practical effects. So, great. I mean, you can bring that stuff into it, get the fan reaction, and bring it in, but don't let it affect the story. Yeah. Let it affect more of the visuals. Yeah.
Well, even, what's great is, Lucas never cared. Never cared how people thought. When when Empire Strikes Back came out, there was a huge backlash of people thinking that it sucked. Where did the story go? You didn't explain this or that, and why did this happen? And, people forget about that now, obviously, because of whatever, and I was definitely around at that point. But,
you didn't care.
Yeah, and I actually love. I was never on board with Colin Trevorrow for episode 9. I was never completely on board with that because, I mean, Jurassic World it's a committee thing. It's barely his movie.
Right.
I mean, obviously Lucasfilm, sure.
Very meh movie.
Yeah.
Didn't care.
Yeah,
for it.
I'm not big on the new one either. I feel like you see the entire movie in the trailer.
Exactly.
Like they played the trailer before The Last Jedi, the extended trailer for
Dude, that was
the
like
new
a
Jurassic
4-minute
World.
trailer.
And I was like, I just watched the entire movie.
Yeah.
I don't need to see that one.
And I mean, with the one that came, just the original Jurassic World, that didn't make me want to go see a sequel.
Nope.
Like,
I felt like that could have ended right there and we'd be done. I wasn't expecting a sequel.
yeah.
But here we are.
So with JJ coming back, I think that's the best thing that could have happened because learn from. I mean, he even put out a statement. I know my mistakes that I made in The Force Awakens, and I want to make something very different, and we're going to go in weird, different ways that we haven't yet. Yeah. And just somebody that learned their mistake comes back, has somebody in the middle to shake things up to make you go in a different direction, but you also learn your mistakes.
Yeah, maybe he needed that little refresher in there in the middle, or maybe he had been working on the story this whole time, and he's like, I can't do the second one. But yeah, I agree. Maybe they need that.
And everybody that's saying, oh, well, Rian Johnson just threw away everything JJ did and this and that. JJ is the executive producer. He's the one that gets to say, I don't want that to happen. That's not what I was planning on. He gets to say. So him going, yeah, do what you want. He didn't have a path for these things. So it's also on him.
Maybe that's how Star Wars is, though. It's more of an organic feel, and I would love for it to come to that, because when we're talking about this stuff too, it is more organic. I mean, we're coming up with things off the top of our heads to talk about. I would like to think that that's how they're writing these movies, even though it seems counterintuitive. It seems to totally make sense because you're sort of writing in things that you're like, oh yeah, we could do that. Let's do that. And then that leads into something else, and then it turns into a really cool story.
Well, Ryan was talking about how when he sat down to write it, he was thinking of, like, for instance, Rey's parentage. And he, like, wrote down every possible parentage that you can think of. And it was, well, what... And going back to one of my favorite parts about Star Wars in general was Rey's whole story. But how none of it had to... It was, oh, this person's, like... If you were Obi-Wan's granddaughter, all right, now your story's figured out. Like, you're this person, you found your place in the universe, and whatever. Yeah. And just to jump to it, it's out of whatever. But in The Force Awakens, when she's scavenging in the destroyer and getting all this stuff to survive, to just get meals, to keep living, and scratching on days that she's recording to wait for her parents to come back. And then she rescues BB-8, and then BB-8, I guess, asks her, or tells her that he's undercover, and she goes, I know all about, or she says something, and then she goes, I know all about waiting, and then he says something, and she goes, my family, and she goes, they'll be back one day. Yeah. And it's so good, the fact that...
I think it's cool, too, that her family isn't anybody that we know. Because it leaves room for who are her parents then? Like, are they just a bunch of drunks? Maybe they were doing some other thing. It kind of gives
Kylo was totally lying to her.
I think that.
Manipulating her, because we see that that's kind of his thing.
Yep.
Yeah, but she's also the one that tells him first. She's the one that says it first.
I mean, but it's maybe just because that's what she was thinking.
Dude, who's drunks? Nobody of a parent have a ship like that. Where they have the flash where she flies away.
Yeah, but the thing is they could have just, like, bought a ticket onto that. It's not theirs. It doesn't have to be theirs.
That's true, I guess.
And it's just a kid hoping and waiting. Like, it's analogous to, like, it's a kid hoping and waiting that their parents didn't leave them, clearly. You're a little kid, like, hoping that there's somebody important and they're there for a reason. Like, I'm here. My parents wouldn't just leave me, so I'm here for a reason. I'm waiting for them. Through the entire Force Awakens, she keeps saying, I need to go back to Jakku. Until she meets Maz, and she goes, you know that your parents aren't coming back. And she starts crying, which is one of the best scenes. And I hope her parents aren't anybody. I hope they're exactly what Kylo said. They're in a shallow grave somewhere on Jakku. And just, that's it. Because it goes to the point, her in the cave, and her entire arc is, it's you. it doesn't matter who your parents are. Like you, it doesn't matter who your parents are. You are you. What your decisions are, you are who you become because of what you decide to do. It has nothing to do with who came before you or. Oh my God, so good.
That is a good one.
Seriously, last question. All right, because this is.
Oh, I've been drinking.
We're well over now. We're getting deep, and we want this to be episode 1 of many.
Yeah.
And we've covered a lot, but we got a lot that we didn't even cover. So we'll get very last one because I just wanted to ask this. Just thought of it because we had talked about this before. And for those of you who don't know, these podcasts may go on for an hour and a half, 2 hours, but we're talking for a good hour before any of this even happens. So this was one of the things that came up pre-show, if you want to call it that, in the green room. Will we see Rey build her own lightsaber out of the kyber crystal from Anakin's cracked saber?
Of course.
I want her to find her own, but I'd like to see a build scene.
Mm-hmm. Will she build it out of her staff? That's my theory.
I'd like to see a Jedi with a two-sided.
I don't know if it needs to be the full staff. I wouldn't mind her cutting off to, and build it out of that.
Mm-hmm. I want to see it two-sided.
Two-sided. Full staff saber.
Blue, for sure.
How long do you think it would stick out then?
Blue?
At the end.
Yeah, originally I was thinking green, but blue works for her. I think it's
the kyber crystal,
and it's the crystal that
that determines. So it's blue.
Is it still canon that the crystal decides what color it's going to be based on you?
Canon.
Yeah, I think that's the new.
Because that's in Rebels, I think, right?
Yeah, I think that's the new canon in that.
When they go through the kyber.
I don't think they're going to do that in the movie.
Dude, what if she builds the entire thing and then turns it on and it's red?
Great.
Well,
so dope.
There was a piece that came. I was reading stuff online. There's a piece that came with Luke's toy, and it was like a red kyber crystal necklace.
Forgot about that.
And there were people who were saying that that's a piece of Vader's, and the other piece is in Kylo's lightsaber. And the reason that it does all that like crazy flares up and stuff is because it's cracked. Yeah.
Well, I actually have a theory on the whole crack thing. Is I think it cracked because he was conflicted when he made it. It was like he was light and dark, and it just split. Speaking of which, did you notice his lightsaber when he was Ben?
Redone.
Mm-hmm. What it was? Mm-hmm. It's his lightsaber. It just doesn't have the vents on the side. It's the exact same one. Which doesn't add anything, but it's sweet.
In that Luke flashback?
Yeah.
I didn't even pay attention to that. Yeah.
So he didn't need the vents at that point, or
no? It's the crystal that's cracked and it's giving off extra. They're just vents. It's not like extra lightsaber.
Right. But
yeah,
he didn't. It wasn't cracked at the time.
Yeah, no.
Interesting.
One more question. It's gonna go on forever.
Might as well.
This is a juggernaut.
Yeah.
This is the show.
What do you? I would assume you want to see Knights of Ren in Episode 9.
I wanted to see Knights of Ren in this one. I was bummed. That might have been my bum out moment outside of Snoke just sucking. I think I really wanted to see Knights of Ren in this, and there was some speculation that Knights of Ren became the Praetorian Guards, but I don't know if I can believe that. It was cool. They all had different weapons, which was similar to Knights of Ren, but I don't know.
Well, that's kind of gone.
I don't feel like they were that powerful as the Praetorian Guards seemed like they were really well trained. Mm-hmm. I feel like Knights of Ren were more like a guerrilla style group. Mm-hmm. I can't believe that they were that strong and powerful that they would have become the Praetorian Guards.
Well, I think it's I mean, if it's what the movie's going towards, where it's the rest of Luke's students that were taken, was, I mean, the Praetorian Guards got the best of Kylo in certain instances. So obviously, I'm sure Kylo was the best student Luke had, so they're lower. So I don't think it's the Praetorians.
Do you think the Praetorian Guards are actually just puppets of Snoke, because we don't see their faces or anything like that?
The in Rogue One, the Death Troopers, that was like a concept for them, that they were more or less going to be like zombies.
Yeah.
And like zombie stormtroopers, I guess.
What if Knights of Ren were all killed off by Kylo? Maybe Kylo killed them, and then Snoke sort of reassembled them and turned them into his guards. And
Master puppeteer.
He's puppeteering them, yeah.
Never happened in movies.
We
but...
get deep. We are getting deep, and it's all
like
thanks to 12 Gates Brewing.
I would like to see Knights of Ren, but what I think is you're going to see it in episode 9, and the reason I say that is so Rey touches that saber in Force Awakens, and it's this like Force vision, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody just assumes it's all in the past.
No.
Couldn't that be like a future thing that she sees? Like,
I think it's
definitely
past,
could have
present,
been
future.
because when you see Kylo in the flashback, if you want to call it that, in the rain,
in the rain,
he's fully geared up. I mean, he's not.
But I'm saying
he's not like the Kylo that you see laying in the bed when he drops the roof on Luke.
Right. Mm-hmm. Another cool thing that I think possibly that could be is you kind of got to know the exact part of the scene, but when she first goes into that part of the vision where it's raining and whatever, there's a guy, the point of view that you see is there's a guy standing over you, and then that red lightsaber goes through his chest. Do you think Rey is going to be, or maybe not even Rey, but she can see through the saber or something? Somebody is a part of that Knights of Ren, and that guy's attacking, and like Kylo then like more or less saves you from that guy.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it could also be like a dream. I mean, none of those things in that scene need to be related. And I think it's also a good point that like Kylo looks like he does now.
Yeah. In
that scene where in actuality, I mean, that could have been 10 years ago. But he looks like he does now, and I think it's because Rey only knows him as he is now.
Mm-hmm. That's a good,
so like
very good point.
If you dream about, like, say you have a dream about your dad or something, you're gonna see him as he is now. Yeah. You're not gonna see him as he is back then.
The only thing to that, I don't think Rey ever met him at that point when she had the vision. Point? Did she? I don't think she. No, she never seen him yet.
Well, she met him right after that.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I don't know, but
that's a good point.
In the he's also holding something. So what is that?
Well, that whole Force vision thing is like she can see whatever the artifact that she touched has seen, or could see, I guess. Or wasn't. That's how I understood her. This like Force vision thing. So that's why I immediately thought that was like the overthrow. But yeah, I mean, when he was young, he I would assume he doesn't have like the whole Kylo mask.
Yeah, it's like he was working on his helmet when he was at the camp.
Mm-hmm. And in the movie, they don't know where their future of the movies are going, so they're not gonna show Kylo in a different getup what that they didn't think of yet. So they're just, it's just a vision. So it is. Mm-hmm. It can be interpreted whatever way. What's the final one?
That's it, baby. We got a lot to talk about there, and we're gonna have what's that?
A lot of editing
to do. Thank you guys.
Thank you for.
We have a lot left to talk about too. Like I said, this was part 1, and so we're gonna get deeper and deeper and deeper. And we're gonna get Andrew and Jake in here. We're gonna get a special guest as well on our upcoming podcast. But we'll probably do a few of these. Probably for at least every episode for the next 2 years. Because there's a lot going on in The Last Jedi that we still need to talk about. But you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, all kinds of places. We're on Twitter at Eat Drink Movies, the Movie Marathoners on Facebook. You can find us out there. So you can listen to us, find us, talk to us. If we messed anything up that I didn't edit out and post, let us know. Find us on Twitter. And also, if we want to hear your comments. So keep an eye out on our Twitter feed. We're going to be posting up a bunch of survey type stuff and photos and different things surrounding this podcast. So we want to hear your feedback because that's where we get ideas for future podcasts. So let's hear from you. So for all of us at the Movie Marathoners, I'm Josh.
Jameyson.
Zach.
And we'll see you next time. Good night.
See you.